we started with the research Yesterday we started with the research problem and research questions. And that's as far as we've gotten. But as I said yesterday, the most important thing is to have clearly articulated research questions. Once you have those, everything else will fall into place. And by the end of today, we will have finished literature, conceptualization, and operationalization. So we're in really good shape, I think. And I'm so impressed with the work that you've been doing. Can I have the next? Oh, I can do this myself now, can't I? Okay. So this is what we're going to do today. We're going to continue with the presentations of the research questions. After the tea break, Tara's going to talk to us about literature and how we access it, how we use it, and how we can use that literature to provide a strong rationale for our research questions. And that will be so important for your FINCAPES proposals. After the lunch break, we're going to put you back into groups to work again, to talk about your research questions and what you find in the literature about those research questions till about 2:30. Then I'm going to come back and talk about conceptualization and operationalization. After the tea break, we're going to put you back to work again to figure that out for your research proposal. And then we're going to come back together and talk about that together, just like we did the research questions. So that's what we're going to do today. Just a couple of notes about the research questions. You are all experts now. So when your colleagues are up presenting their research questions, think about how you might help them shape those questions in a way that their proposals will be more successful, because you're experts now. Don't be surprised, the second thing, don't be surprised if your research questions change before the end of the day. That's not only normal in research, it's expected. As you read the literature, as you talk to your colleagues, as you get feedback, your research questions are going to shift, and that's a good thing. So don't be afraid of that. We have a number of presentations to go through, but I did say that if people had additional thoughts over the evening or had done some additional work, that they could re-present their research questions if they wanted to. But we're going to hear from those we haven't yet heard from first. So that's how we're going to spend our time until the tea break. Are there any questions before we begin? I see 4 things in the chat. Is there anything in the chat that we need to be aware of? Okay. So we're going to go to the presentations. So what we're going to do is just put them up here. And if it's your slide, come on up and present. We don't know what order they're in. It'll be exciting to see who gets to come up first, or they might be on Zoom. So can we load the first presentation?
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. I'm Andita Mindamora from Jambi University. Okay, this is a research question from the research problem in sustainable ecosystem in Jambi province. Jambi province in the island of Sumatra, Indonesia, is endowed with rich natural resources, including extensive forests, peatland, diverse aquatic ecosystem. But the problem is the challenge in Jambi province is deforestation and degradation is so high. So the research questions from the problem is what is the appropriate sustainable ecosystem model to be implemented in Jambi, and what kind of economic activity can support the environmental sustainability and increase the income of local communities in Jambi province, and how to involve the local communities in managing sustainable ecosystems in Jambi. Maybe that's it, the presentation for me
Perfect. Yeah, that's
in
great.
this morning. Thank you.
Questions, comments? I'm going to hint at something that we're going to do later today in conceptualization and operationalization. But can I ask the presenter, what do you mean when you say appropriate?
Okay. The appropriate that I mean maybe apa ya?
Should go back on. You're back on mute, my friend.
Ibu Andita masih di mute, Bu. Halo? Ibu Andita mau menjelaskan kembali, Bu Andita, mic-nya masih di mute, Ibu. Ya, mau menjelaskan pertanyaan dari Susan tadi.
Yeah, the appropriate that I mean is from the environment in Jambi that can implement it in Jambi.
But what do you mean when you say appropriate?
Wait.
Halo, Ibu Andita, ada pertanyaan dari Susan. Apa yang Ibu maksud sebagai appropriate? Boleh dijelaskan? Masih mute, Bu. Masih mute.
Okay, so maybe we'll move on. And this is just highlighting that when we put words in our research questions, it's important to know what we mean when we say those words. What does appropriate mean? Is that appropriate? Is it culturally appropriate? Physically appropriate with respect to the ecosystem? Is it appropriate in the context of equity? How are we meaning that word? Okay, great. Let's go to the next one.
Here, just because I think the last one is the person on Zoom. So if they come back, please let us know with the volume. But everybody, if you see your PowerPoint, please raise your hand because there's no names attached to these. This is all random. So we'll stand here in awkward silence until someone says, this was mine.
Yay! Come on up.
Morning. this is my case before going here. I think Pantura is one of side, but after explanation yesterday, maybe have changed, but don't know. Actually, this case in the Pantura is very complicated, but I want to try highlight about teori feminis, ecological politik feminis. So, and I don't know, it's include in nature-based solution or no, but in the fact, in the field, women very active at there, Puspita Bahari in Demak, and they also making many activity to protect their habitat, their community, especially in coastal. So reclaiming the political territory, study on Java North coast female fisheries from feminist ecology perspective. Next. The research question, the first, how do female fishermen in Pantura deal with gender-based injustice? Sorry, I cannot see the. Yeah, but it's about gender-based social justice. And second, what intersectional factor prevent women in the Pantura fishing community from gaining equitable and long-term access, control, and utilization of fisheries resources? The third, what are the consequences of unfairness and a lack of acknowledgement for female fishermen in Pantura? And the fourth, how are steps being taken to affirm and recognize women position at fishermen? Because the recognition about women fishermen is known, so they didn't get the recognition about their job. No recognition from people, from community, and from the state. Thank you.
That's great. Questions, comments? Yes.
Thank you. Very interesting research question. But could you please describe little bit more about the female fishermen? Are the what is what kind of female fishermen in your research location? Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question. In many places in Indonesia, women fishermen didn't get recognition, only help the husband to get going to the sea. But in the field, we found many women also going to the sea, catch the fish, not only after the harvest or after the men come to the beach, but also going to the sea, also stay at the ship until 2 or 3 days or maybe more. So many activity women before going to the sea and after and in the sea also. So in Indonesia, there are only 31 women in Demak get recognition in KTP, in identity card, as woman fishermen. And to get this, they have a very struggle to get recognition. And I think the community they have a community they call Puspita Bahari in Demak is very strong and many activities. So I want to making dissemination or something, making a activity with them to make making a better life quality, livelihood at there. And also, of course, this is nature-based solution, so we can mix because they have a very vulnerable because the rock, the flooding of the sea, the, and the land, their village is gone because of the rock. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We actually have, I've done research with women fishermen in Canada. We have 3 coastlines in Canada. So resource extraction of fish is a big part of our economy on those coastlines. And I remember when I first started working with the women, we would call them fisher women. And they would say, no, I am a fisherman. I want the same status and the same recognition as a fisherman. Don't call me a fisherwoman. And that was the first thing I learned about them. I want to ask the group, we're here to talk about nature-based solutions, and we had a side conversation yesterday about whether this research actually is a nature-based solution. I know what I think. What do others in the room think? You are all experts now in research. This call for proposals is about nature-based solutions. Before I ask Asmi to weigh in, I'm going to take a vote. How many people think this is consistent with a nature-based solution? Put your hand up. How many people think it is not? So that means 90% of the people in this room are not sure. Right? So that's a problem if we're not sure what a nature-based solution is. So did we receive all the copies of the slides from yesterday, right? So we saw Brent, everyone has all of Brent's slides. What is a nature-based solution? A whole bunch of questions. You've got the URL, the website for the 169 research gaps in nature-based solutions that we shared with you yesterday. Asmi, do you think this project is consistent with the call for proposals for nature-based solutions?
I'm nervous. Well, the consequences of unfair and lack of acknowledgement. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I think this is part of nature-based solutions. So I'm hoping that pretty soon we start to see some basic science as well, because I'm really surprised at the level of social science, which makes me happy, but I know that there's some basic science that needs to be done as well. But I'm a firm believer that human beings are at the center of the ecosystem, and women are 50% of the world's population. And so if they are actually part of the problem and that they're exploiting the ecosystem, they're fishermen, we want them on board in terms of protecting that ecosystem as well. So I do think it's a nature-based solution project. I hope others agree, but you make your own mind up because you're all experts now. Okay, let's move to the next one.
To invite the person.
Aulia Rahim from Diponegoro University. So my research plan title is Mangrove Ecosystem Conservation in the Highest Vulnerable Coastal Area in Central Java, Indonesia, Gender Equality Approach in Bedono, Demak Regency. Next slide, please. So this is the research problem. As we all know, mangrove are one of the blue carbon ecosystem that provide various ecosystem services essential in climate change adaptation by sequestering carbon, enhancing shoreline stability, and protecting coastal settlement from coastal disaster. So this project will take place in Bedono Village, one of the most vulnerable coastal area in Demak Regency, Central Java Province, that has faced climate change impact, including sea level rise, coastal erosion, and also inundation. So even though the project location is close to the capital city of Central Java, Semarang, the impact of climate change is already massive. It has resulted in the sinking of hundreds of houses and public facilities and the degradation of mangrove ecosystem. So these conditions are already threatening the livelihoods of coastal community and will further exacerbate existing gender and other social inequalities, with women and other vulnerable groups bearing the most severe negative consequences. So this is the real condition in Bedono. So this condition is quite serious, but the majority of local community do not want to be relocated and just to stay at this area. So this is the research question. One is there a difference in the level of participation between gender in effort to overcome the impact of abrasion and tidal floods, as well as protect the mangrove ecosystem in Bedono village? And then how to design the mangrove ecosystem sustainable management and conservation strategy while simultaneously providing additional advantage from a socioeconomic perspective by addressing and transforming gender inequities in Bedono village. So this is my presentation. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Questions from the group, whether online or in person?
I have one question. In the second research question, you discuss about the conservation strategy in Bedono, Demak. Maybe based on my experiences, there is just a few of mangroves that could be, conserved. I mean, a lot of degradation of the mangroves of course, in Bodono. I mean, how do you conserve the mangroves if the mangrove is not really possible to conserve in terms of the strategy? Thank
Good
you.
question. And that's a great example of where you're the experts. So you know the area and you have a question specific to that location. That was a great question. So do we have a response?
Thank you. Can I answer in bahasa? Baik, izinkan saya untuk menjawab dalam bahasa Indonesia. Terima kasih atas pertanyaannya. Jadi memang proyek kita adalah di Bedono. Beberapa kali saya turun langsung ke beberapa ekosistem mangrove di Bedono. Memang mayoritas dari ekosistem mangrove di Bedono ini dalam keadaan yang rusak cukup parah. Namun ada beberapa bagian, salah satunya di Dusun Bedono dan Dusun Morosari, yang masih memiliki potensi untuk bisa dikonservasi. Di mana dalam upaya konservasi sendiri beberapa upaya sudah dilakukan. Salah satunya ada juga dengan kerjasama dengan Jepang seperti itu. Jadi walaupun mayoritasnya dalam keadaan yang cukup rusak, tapi ada beberapa bagian yang menurut kami masih cukup baik untuk bisa dikonservasi.
Thank you so much. And I also just want to point out that these researchers have used what Tara talked about as the gold standard from your GESI document, the FINCAPES GESI document, which is looking at gender transformative research. And so we see that that language has made it right into the research objectives. Thanks so much. That's great. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, basic science, yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Vivi Gusdianti, and I'm from Department of Silviculture, Faculty of Forestry and Environment of IPB University, like other presenter, my topic a little bit like a hard science, more like basic science, because my expertise is forest genetics and also tree improvement. So I'm thinking about what I can do for conserving the ecosystem using my knowledge or my what I know in forest genetics side and also tree improvement side. This is of course tentative title for my uh, proposed proposal. The title is Phenotypic and Genetic Characteristic Assessment of Avicennia marina plus 3 for establishment seed production area. Actually, my previous research also used Avicennia marina, but at the time we collected the population in the heavily mental polluted area in Krakatau steel industry area, and then also in the moderate polluted area and less polluted. We want to seek whether there are difference in the genetics between the three sites in the case of Avicennia marina. And the result we got, Avicennia marina population in the heavily polluted area has a very low genetic variation or diversity compared to the less polluted area. So that's the previous work. We are assess the genetic diversity. Now, when we talk about the rehabilitation, mangrove rehabilitation, because to fit with the FinCap scope about the like a rehabilitation and of course using the nature-based solution, we still thinking about Avicennia marina. This is the most important species in the first zone is growing close to the sea. So probably you are from, I don't know, probably some of you from the forestry or from the fishery faculty previously, you have heard about the mangrove zone. So the close to the sea is Avicennia marina, and then rhizophore, and then Bruguruera, and then Soneratia, and then yeah, I mean every mangrove zone has a specific species. So Avicennia marina can stand with a very high level of salinity. But in the case of rehabilitation, mostly people in Indonesia use rhizophore seedlings. Why? Because the Avicennia marina seedling stocks is not available, not sustained, not available every, like when they want to do plantation, the stock is not ready. So they use the available seedling stock that usually rhizophore. It's more easy to, I don't know, to germinate the rhizophore seed compared to the Avicennia. So lack of stock. And when we talk about the successful of the plantation or rehabilitation of the mangrove, we need also consider about the source of the seedling, where the mother tree come from. Because if we use not superior tree, probably when we plant the seedling, it not growly uniform, or the survival rate is maybe only 30%, but we hope on 100% can grow. I mean, we hope that the survival rate must be high, but when we use on maybe not good the mother tree source, maybe we cannot get the successful rehabilitation of the mangrove. So the problem, we don't know the mother tree origin now. That's why we need to explore the natural forest, the natural mangrove forest in Indonesia, which has Avicenna marina. And then after mother tree, after we explore where the mother tree is, we need to choose. We need to select which we say superior mother tree. Because mother tree, meaning that the tree can produce the seed. But the superior different with the only mother tree. Superior tree meaning the tree has a genetically good performance and also phenotypically also showing a good performance. Do I look like teaching? And then after that, after we select the mother tree, we can improve the seed quality, of course. And then the problem is when we do the selection of the mother tree, we don't have a protocol in Indonesia now. We do have a protocol or methodology or the guideline for selecting the mother tree for non-mangrove species like agatis, like a pine, like a teak. That's all species used for timber. But for mangrove, no, there is no protocol for that. So from this problem, now I only many questions actually in my head, but I put only 3. So which provenance? Provenance means the origin of the mother tree, or we can call population that can be selected as a seed source stands for Avicenna marina. So this is where I said we need to explore which the natural forest we can select, which provenance we can select to be the potential seed stand. And then from that seed stand, can the existing plus reselection method used for the non-mangrove timber, I mean, can we adopt like Agatis protocol plus 3 used for also mangrove? So the protocol is like that. It's okay if I explain a little bit about the protocol? Take 1 more minute. Okay. Okay. So plus 3 protocol for non-mangrove timber is like we do scoring. We assess one individual per one individual, the phenotypic characteristic like diameter, height, and then the branch, the health of the branch, the health of the trunk. So all we do score for individual tree. That's probably we can use also for the mangrove. But diameter and the tree height is important for species that we can use for the timber. So for the mangrove, I don't know, maybe we concerned about the carbon content. So we need to include one of a parameter that can be used for carbon assessment approach. So that's maybe we need to modify. But yes, my question is, can the existing plus 3 selection method can be used also for Avicenna marina? And then the third one, which phenotypic and genetic characteristics should be considered for selecting Avicenna marina plus 3? But this is too huge actually to be done for a 1 year research. So yeah, maybe also for the research budget, 15 million is not enough also for the genetic characteristic. But for why not to make the research question? I can put this. So
Perfect. That's great.
yeah,
So
I think that's all. Thank you.
if I summarize this, are we saying if we want to regenerate mangroves forests, we need to be able to plant the right trees, right? And you need to figure out what the right tree is and where to get the seeds for that tree. And that's super important. Yeah, I think that's great. Thank you so much. Yes, you have a question. Perfect.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Vivi. I have a question. Why do you choose Avicennia As far as I know, Avicenna is a pioneer species, right? So usually it will die after 16 years. And when the soil is established and there is limited water, right? It's mean if we use the Avicennia for the restoration or rehabilitation, it will not sustainable. After after 16 years, we have to replanting with Rhizopora. That's case that I found in several places. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Dr. Meti, for your question. As I mentioned before, actually the mangrove zone is uh, varied from the in front of the sea and then back. So the zone close to the sea is Avicenna marina zone. And for the rehabilitation mangroves, usually people use rhizophore because the seed is available, but they need actually Avicenna marina for that zone. So rehabilitation is site is not only close to the beach. I mean, they usually use Soneratia or Buruguere or rhizophore with the low salinity, but to make like natural or secondary forest, you need to actually follow the natural zone like Avicennia, rhizophore, and then Burgulera soneratia. So even though Avicennia will die 16 years later, but we need the concept of the rehabilitation or revegetation, we need to return back the ecosystem into the natural one. So Avicennia is also one of the most important species need to be planted. If we use only rhizophore, we only have rhizophore mangrove forest in all Indonesia, we will lose the Avicennia marina. So it's also conserve the Avicennia marina itself, but it can return the ecosystem into back to the normal one, hopefully. And hopefully we can get the more seedling after we replant the Avicennia marina. Yes.
Thank you.
Do I answer your question? Yeah.
You have to more mention about the importance of this Avicennia for the mangrove ecosystem, like something like that, because mostly prefer to plant the Rhizopora. Okay, so thank you. I think that's
Thanks so much. That's great. And now we have another basic science one. Is this one in the room or online? Is that you? Yeah, great. Come.
You can, I think during the lunch, the break, that's where the questions could be more helpful because we want to go through everybody. So if that's okay, now that you know everybody's interests, you can see everybody has questions, okay? But we're looking for your presentation. So not birds. All the presentations have already been posted on the slide. So we can just skip this one for now and then we'll go to the next one and
Yep.
we'll come back.
Perfect. Let's do that.
So honeybees. Is it this one? Oh, okay, so I have it.
Very next one. Wonderful.
Mohon maaf, saya presentasi dalam bahasa Indonesia. Baik, terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Saya Hadinoto dari Universitas Lancang Kuning Pekanbaru. Saya mencoba untuk membuat sebuah topik tentang pemberdayaan kaum perempuan dengan budidaya lebah gelulut, ya, stainless B ini, dalam rangka untuk pelestarian hutan mangrove. Memang saya tidak langsung berkecimpung di gambut dan mangrove, tapi pada saat ini saya dan tim sedang mendampingi kelompok masyarakat untuk budidaya lebah gelulut ini yang hasilnya cukup menggembirakan, dapat meningkatkan ekonomi masyarakat. Latar belakangnya bahwa di Provinsi Riau sekarang hutan gambut sudah mengalami perubahan yang cukup masif, ya, baik itu degradasi maupun deforestasi yang diubah dari peruntukannya, ya, baik itu oleh masyarakat maupun oleh perusahaan gitu. Nah, situasi ini sangat cukup memprihatinkan kalau tidak ada upaya untuk bisa mengatasinya. Salah satu upaya untuk bisa mencegah ini adalah dengan memberdayakan masyarakat, dalam hal ini budidaya lebah madu yang ada di sekitar kawasan hutan gambut ini, terutama kaum perempuan. Perlu diketahui bahwa budidaya lebah gelulut ini atau stainless B ini itu cukup mudah karena tidak ada sengat dan pemeliharaannya juga tidak repot dan menghasilkan madu atau honey itu yang harganya cukup mahal dibandingkan dengan madu-madu biasa gitu. Karena ini bisa dijadikan juga turunannya ada propolis dan sebagainya gitu. Sehingga dengan adanya budidaya ini secara langsung dia akan bisa memberikan manfaat ekonomi kepada keluarga. Kemudian yang secara tidak langsung masyarakat dalam hal ini nanti juga turut serta kaum perempuan itu turut bisa menjaga hutannya karena sumber pakan lebah adalah pohon dan nektar yang ada di pohon itu, sehingga dia akan menjaga, termasuk dari gangguan-gangguan lain, termasuk kebakaran gitu. Sehingga secara tidak langsung masyarakat, terutama kaum perempuan ini turut serta juga menjaga hutan gambut itu. Kenapa kami pilih perempuan? Karena biasanya di dalam kepala keluarga itu, walaupun dia seorang perempuan, seorang ibu, dia punya kekuasaan yang lebih secara tidak langsung gitu ya. Sehingga ini akan berpengaruh terhadap keputusan keluarga untuk bisa turut berkontribusi dalam pelestarian hutan mangrove di sekitarnya. Karena itu kami ambil masalah ini. Gitu. Kemudian pertanyaannya adalah bagaimana kontribusi kaum perempuan itu di dalam meningkatkan perekonomian keluarga dengan budidaya, harapannya adalah dia meningkat ekonominya keluarganya gitu. Kemudian bagaimana peran perempuan ya di dalam menjaga hutan gambut ya dari berbagai gangguan, termasuk gangguan kebakaran, gangguan mungkin illegal logging dan sebagainya, karena dia akan menjaga hutan itu untuk bisa menyediakan pakan yang cukup bagi peliharaannya atau lebah madu tersebut gitu. Terus bagaimana kaum perempuan berpartisipasi dalam restorasi hutan itu gitu. Karena dengan dia memelihara itu ada upaya untuk terus dia menanam jenis-jenis pohon tertentu untuk bisa menyediakan pakan yang berkelanjutan. Terima kasih.
I love this. This is a great, great project. Questions, comments about the research questions? If you were reading these research questions, just the research questions, how would you know it's about honeybees? I think it's a great research project. I just think you need to talk about the honeybees themselves in these research questions. But also, I just want to ask you, have you ever heard of this type of honey called Manuka honey? Do you know this honey? Do you see it here? No, it's from New Zealand, right? It costs $150 USD for a small jar. What makes this honey so special? Do you know? I just recently found this out. Do you know why it's so expensive and why it's so special? It has antibiotic properties. And so in Canada, when it's cold during the winter, we are sick all the time. Viruses, we have colds, we have flu, we have COVID, we have everything, strep throat. So mothers will give their child a teaspoonful of Manuka honey every day to strengthen their immune system. ITB now has a medical school. You partnered with the medical school folks to try and figure out if you could actually generate a type of honey that had some antibacterial properties in it. You could make a lot of money. You could have a spin-off company, sell the honey in that fancy shop in the mall. That would be amazing. Great. Okay, next one. Drones. Let's hear about drones. Yeah, I love drones. Yay, drones.
Terima kasih. Izinkan saya menyampaikan dalam bahasa Indonesia karena kalau bahasa Inggris ini agak teknikal sekali ya. Jadi mungkin delivery-nya agak sulit gitu. Baik. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi. Perkenalkan saya Ashari dari ITERA. ITERA kampus baru di Sumatera ya. Di Prodi Sains Lingkungan Kelautan kebetulan saya mengajar. Kenapa saya ambil judul ini? Karena dari pengalaman kami, setiap kegiatan perencanaan, baik itu rehabilitasi, restorasi, itu pasti membutuhkan baseline data awal terkait ini. Jadi terkait dengan perencanaan ke belakang mau dibuat seperti apa, itu kita harus bagaimana mengidentifikasi spesies mangrove itu. Nah, keuntungan zaman sekarang karena ada drone, itu kita akan lebih mudah untuk mengetahui jenis mangrove dengan luas yang sangat besar seperti itu dan memangkas terkait dengan biaya survei pastinya. Yang seumpama kayak proyek kemarin itu diproyeksikan selesai sekitar 2 minggu, tapi dengan menggunakan teknologi ini kami bisa menyelesaikan dalam waktu 3 hari. Jadi sangat efisien. Mungkin next slide. Sorry, I forget about it. Oke, nah ini ada research question saya, cuma 1. Karena kalau bikin 3 kayaknya banyak. Jadi bagaimana mengidentifikasi spesies mangrove menggunakan teknologi UAV. Jadi teknologi sekarang drone itu sangat mudah untuk kita akses, sangat mudah untuk kita gunakan. Kemudian harganya juga tidak terlalu mahal. Bisa di ya sekitar 20-30 juta itu kita bisa melakukan aktivitas seperti ini. Nah, apa yang kita peroleh dari data drone sebenarnya ada banyak, tapi mungkin ada 4 saja yang saya sajikan di sini. Yang pertama itu terkait dengan bagaimana kita mengasesmen biodiversity sekitar gitu. Jadi itu yang pertama. Kemudian yang kedua sudah saya sampaikan tadi terkait dengan mengurangi biaya survei kita ketika di lapangan seperti itu. Nah, kemudian yang ketiga yang banyak kami lakukan proyek di Lampung, terutama site kami dan di daerah Batam, itu terkait dengan serapan karbon yang ada di mangrove tersebut. Gitu. Jadi dengan menggunakan teknologi ini tadi ya terkait dengan waktu, kemudian cost biaya itu bisa ditekan seperti itu. Kemudian yang keempat itu terkait dengan bagaimana kita bisa memonitoring kondisi kesehatan dari vegetasi mangrove itu. Jadi ada beberapa kawasan ekowisata mangrove di Lampung yang kami jalin kerjasama itu setiap tahun pasti atau setiap beberapa pekan, setiap beberapa bulan itu kami monitoring kondisinya, apakah masih dalam kondisi baik-baik saja atau tidak. Dan itu bisa menjadi salah satu tindakan preventif ya atau pencegahan. Apakah di daerah itu nanti ketika mungkin makin rusak atau apa itu bisa langsung segera ditangani misalnya dengan kegiatan penanaman seperti itu. Di sini kita bisa lihat ada 2 gambar ya. Yang gambar pertama ini adalah ortofoto istilahnya ya. Setelah dari drone menangkap gambar, kita olah menjadi ortofoto seperti ini. Bisa kita buat dalam 2 dimensi sampai dengan 3 dimensi. Dari sini kita bisa mengolahnya nanti sampai kepada spesies apa yang ada di daerah tersebut. Kemudian yang kedua ini terkait dengan data yang kedua dihasilkan, yaitu adalah DEM, istilahnya Digital Elevation Model. Dari data ini kita bisa mengukur ketinggian dari pohon yang ada di sekitar lokasi ini. Jadi akan ketahuan tuh mana pohon yang dewasa, mana yang masih muda, dan seterusnya. Seperti itu. Nah, ini metodenya yang biasa dilakukan itu adalah dengan visual interpretation ya. Jadi dengan interpretasi visual di data tersebut, itu kita bisa mendelineasi batas antara yang mana Rhizopora, yang mana Avicennia, yang mana Burguera, dan seterusnya. Sebagai contoh, ini ada 2 spesies di sini. Ada Rhizopora, ini kalau dari data drone, bentukannya seperti ini. Dia lebih gelap warnanya, lebih dark. Kemudian kalau di data lapangan seperti kayak gini tampilannya. Kemudian untuk yang data drone yang kedua ini adalah jenis Avicennia. Dia itu berwarna lebih cerah ya dibandingkan dengan Rhizopora. Itu. Kemudian di habitat alami seperti begini. Itu. Jadi perlu digarisbawahi bahwa tidak langsung kita menjustifikasi jenisnya tersebut. Tapi kita butuh data, tetap membutuhkan data lapangan sebagai data ground truth istilahnya untuk memvalidasi kebenaran dari hasil klasifikasi yang kita lakukan. Jadi seperti itu. Itu metode yang pertama melalui visual. Kemudian yang kedua menggunakan metode OBIA, Object Based Image Analysis. Di metode ini itu menggunakan beberapa algoritma yang sudah dikembangkan. Salah satunya adalah pakai MRS ya, Multi Resolution Segmentation. Biasanya kita pakai juga itu adalah algoritma SVM untuk mengenerate mana jenis A, B, dan C. Nah, kalau di kami biasanya mengkombinasikan antara kedua metode ini. Jadi, kedua metode ini kami kombinasikan, menghasilkan ketelitian data di lapangan itu di atas 85% tingkat kebenarannya. Jadi ya secara standarisasi BIG, Badan Informasi Geospasial, itu diterima petanya sebagai peta yang benar atau betul atau peta yang valid. Jadi mungkin seperti itu dari saya. Cukup sekian. Terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much. Questions for our presenter?
Check. Okay, thank you for the opportunity given to me. Actually, I kind of studying remote sensing and GIS so much also, but I just don't think that we can identify the species based on only for the visual interpretation and using perhaps object-based image analysis is also kind of advanced method to segment images, but I'm not sure that we can identifying species from the visible camera, because we need to visible optic. Yeah, visible camera. I think it's not possible because when we talk about spectral library, we need to identify in detail And conventional camera, we bring in the UAVs, not able to differentiate the specific spectral signature of the mangrove. So perhaps you can use another different methods or kind of different camera to identify that. Moreover, mangrove ecosystem in the field not only individually species like you show in the picture, but it kind of mix in the field. So if there is a Avicennia, not only Avicennia in that zone, but also another species could gather in that area. So it's kind of very difficult to identify the species from the UAV. Even though in my experience, my lecturer in previously, identifying species perhaps could be possible to do using hyperspectral images. Perhaps you can modify your UAVs using hyperspectral images, perhaps, or something. But I just doubting the method you use to identify species using visible camera, RGB camera, and the segmentation, multi-resolution segmentation, or etc. Thank you.
I'm going to let you respond to that, but I also was thinking as you were presenting, is there a way to do what I've called a comparative analysis? To do it with drones, do it in the traditional way, the way that we do it now, and then assess which one is better. That would strengthen your research question to say, I'm going to assess 3 different methods of capturing land cover of the mangrove of the forest so that we can better capture valid assessments of their capacity for carbon sequestration and what was the other one? Sorry, I'm just tired. Carbon sequestration and monitoring their health over time, doing a comparative analysis. Yeah. So you go ahead and respond to that, and then we'll move on to our next one.
Sorry. Bu, mungkin bisa saya tadi momentari. Ya, jadi mungkin ya. Jadi kan ada banyak metode ya. Kita pakai kamera hyperspektral, mau pakai kamera thermal, mau pakai kamera RGB, itu kan pilihan ya. Tapi dengan melihat kondisi, karena kalau yang pakai kamera thermal segala macam itu kan biayanya sangat besar tuh ke cost-nya. Nah, kami itu mengembangkan, menawarkan metode bagaimana kamera RGB ini bisa untuk melakukan kegiatan seperti tadi. Dan itu sudah kami teliti, bukan cuma kami, ada beberapa kampus yang meneliti, dan dari Badan Informasi Geospasial juga ikut ke dalam situ mengembangkan itu, dan itu bisa diakui sebagai data, maksudnya yang memiliki validitas, ya, maksudnya untuk kebenarannya seperti itu. Itu yang pertama. Ya, karena memang harganya ya kamera thermal hyperspektral itu sangat mahal gitu. Nah, terkait dengan gerombolan spesies itu, jadi memang ada ininya ya, ada semacam syarat dan ketentuannya begitu ya. Jadi biasanya itu kami melihat daerah di situ dulu, apakah itu penutupannya itu seragam di tempat tersebut ataukah mencar-mencar. Tapi kalau yang di tempat alami, yang sesuai dengan zonasi alami kan sudah jelas Avicennia paling depan di daerah mudflat, rataan lumpur, kemudian masuk ke zonanya Rhizopora, kemudian masuk ke daerah yang agak pasang surutnya itu nggak nyampe ke sana, macam kayak Bruguera, Seriops, dan seterusnya itu. Jadi itu yang bisa menjadi salah satu base-nya gitu. Nah, tadi membandingkan jadi data yang dari hasil algoritma tadi, segmentasi algoritma tadi, itu kami kawinkan dengan data, komparasi data yang dari lapangan sama yang visual yang tadi seperti itu. Jadi ada 3 tahapan sebenarnya ada 4 tahapan untuk bisa sampai ke sana, dan pasti akan tetap selalu ada ground truth atau ground check di lapangan. Nah, setelah kami teliti, dan bukan cuma kami yang meneliti, ground truth-nya itu bisa sampai dengan 85%. Nanti mungkin saya perlihatkan jurnal yang membahas itu, ada banyak. Nanti saya bagikan kalau misalnya memang diperlukan untuk analisis terkait dengan vegetasi ini. Terima kasih.
Perfect segue into literature after the tea break. Good. So we have, I think, 8 more Tara said. So we'll probably go on a little bit after the break, but let's get at least 2 or 3 more done before we go. Is this someone on Zoom or in the room?
On Zoom, I think.
Great.
Pak Doni. Halo Pak Doni. Pak Doni Yusri. Halo Pak Doni.
Why don't we go on to the next
We're gonna
one?
go to the next one, and when they're ready, they'll let us know. I have a case study slide here on Ketapang. Anyone here?
Who is the sender? Who is the creator? Oh, there's no name. Ada yang punya slide ini? Oh, this is yesterday ya?
Oh, it was presented yesterday.
Okay, moving on.
So this one,
This one we've already heard.
does anyone recognize this slide? All right, come on up.
Perfect.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present my proposed proposal. Maybe first, I want to discuss who am I. I'm Pijumaran Sagala from C4 Aircraft Research Consultant, and I have graduated from IPB University, majoring applied methodology in 2021. And mostly I work for the carbon stock measurements, carbon stock fluxes from the field, which based on my experiences, we compare 3 kind of areas: Banten, Demak, and Regencies, as well as supporting the studies from the undergraduate, graduate students, and doctoral students from IPB University. And why I work with the mangroves? That is because of the mangroves has saved my life in 2010 when I was 10 years old, because I was born in Mantawa Island in the year of 2000, where when in 2010 there was the earthquakes, almost 7.5 scale Richter, that triggered almost 5 meters of tsunamis, that in 2010 also causing more than 400 people were passed away because of the tsunamis. And maybe some of us know about that informations or news. And yeah, before we discuss about the research questions and also objectives, I would like to discuss more about the carbon stocks. Maybe some of us do not really know and understand about the carbon stock process from the mangroves. So I would like to inform us as well from this room, like how we measure the carbon stocks from the mangroves. And for the information, I also work under supervisions by Professor Daniel Murdiarso, which is also the principal scientist at C4. So as we see, we measure the carbon stocks through the methodology that has been proposed by the C4 in 2012, as well as the IPCC. And then it could be said that we measure by the international standards to, triggering the investors from global world. I mean, we use the high quality data to be, to be measured and also to be included into the carbon stock markets around the world. And then from the trees, we measure the three part of the mangroves. The first one called AGC, or above ground carbon, which is the carbon that has been stored in the above ground level of the land. So we measure the carbon from the liter fall, the diameter breast height, and other more. And the second one is below ground carbon, which is the carbon that has been stored in the roots of the mangroves, and it can be specific into the specific species. So we measure it by the allometric equations into taking the value of the carbon. And the last one is soil carbon. That is the carbon that has been stored inside of the soil. And this is the most important part, because based on of many studies around the world, it has been, knowing that soil carbon of the mangroves can absorb or can store the carbon 3 times higher than another part below ground and above ground. And then after knowing this, I propose research questions. There are two. The first one is, how is mangrove stock carbon distributed across the Indonesian regions? Because based on my literature review, there is just a few papers or publications that measure, or maybe making a paper that discussed mangrove stock carbon that has been compiled around Indonesian countries. And then the second one is, how does gender participation compare in the role of mangrove management? And the objectives are, the first one, provide up-to-date national assessments of mangrove carbon stocks and its variability across different provinces in Indonesia. As I said, there is just a few studies that has collect all the data from all over Indonesia within using the methods that has been knowing around the world based on IPCC and C4. The second one is highlighting existing knowledge on mangrove carbon by assessing the methods currently used in sea organic stock assessment. And the last one is to assess the participation and role of women and finding gender balance of solutions towards sustainable mangrove management, with a study case in Jambi, West Kalimantan, Lampung, and Riau provinces, as the FINCAPES project has been developed into those areas. And then good point to know is that in C4 we also have the data first. From 2012, we collect all the data around the world, measuring the carbon stocks globally. And mostly we also work in Indonesian region. So this kind of database can be used to analyze based on the research question and also the objectives. And this one is also my recent paper that has been published in January 2024, where we assessed the coastal vulnerability to support mangrove restoration in the northern coast of Java. As Mr. Ban also yesterday said that in COP26, Mr. President Joko Widodo has declared that Indonesia will rehabilitate almost 600,000 hectares. But at the time, Rupas Kabumia and Daniel Murtiars also, like how we can understand and also how we can be focused on what area that mangroves should be restored or rehabilitated based on of this index. And so we do not like plant mangroves just like that. And then, yeah, so we measure it by the index to which one we have to be more focused and research. And so,
Great.
yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Good. I'll trade you. Oh, I put mine down there. Oh, I have two in my hand. Maybe I am jet lagged. I think that's great. So as you've probably noticed, I've just been making a list of concepts from people's presentations that I want to come back to this afternoon. But I want to use, I'm just going to take a quick moment to do an example. So one of the things you talked about, where did you go? There you are, was being gender balanced. And I just want to use this moment to do an illustration of equity versus equality. Remember, Tara gave this wonderful presentation yesterday about equity versus equality. So what does gender balanced mean? So that's something you'll need to think about. How will we know that when we see it? And if we were doing this on the basis of equality, we would say gender balance is 50-50. 50% of the world's population is women, 50% is men. Probably the same in Indonesia because it's pretty much that all over the world. That would be equality. That would be equal. But if we were using an equity lens, we know that women are a underrepresented group, a disadvantaged group, particularly in mangrove restoration. I've heard that over and over and over again since I've been here. So maybe gender balanced means 70-30, giving women more power than the men in order to balance out those inequities. And I just wanted to take that moment because I think it's a great example of where we've got a concept like gender equality or gender balanced, which is a great concept. How do we define that? What do we mean by that? And how will we know it when we see it? And are we using an equality lens or an equity lens? So I'll just leave that up for folks to think about. Let's try and do one more and then we'll take our tea break. Is that okay, Asmi? Yeah? Okay. Have we got someone in the room or someone online? Great. Come on up.
Okay, so we can do that after the break
Okay,
then,
let's
because
keep
we'll
that one.
update them. So this one was one slide. Anybody's?
This belong to anyone here or online?
Ibu Iska, is this yours?
Yes, hello everyone.
Hello.
Yeah, sure. Ya, silakan.
Okay, everyone can hear my voice.
Yep.
Ya, Ibu.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Hello everyone, my name is Iska Lestari. I'm a graduate student of IPB University, majoring applied climatology. Me and my partner, Tria Laksita Ardani, they're still in the Zoom. We'll explain about our research plan. The titles is Ripple Effect of the coastal flooding on adaptation strategy with case study in Demak Regency, Central Java. Tidal flooding, or as known as ROP, is a temporary flooding of low-lying areas near a coast. ROP even in Demak coastal area is not a new problem. At least this condition has occurred around a decade ago and make Demak threatened with climate change. So we established some research questions. The first one is, how does climate variability affect tidal flooding or ROP frequency? We will analyze several climatic parameters such precipitation, wind speed, or temperature also related to ROP frequency. And the second one is, what is the impact of ROP distributions on the extent of coastal regions? These questions relate to changing of coastal line followed by sinking of some local people house in that area. From that two questions, then we will know in what ways does ROP trigger population displacement and local livelihood shifting in the Demak Regency. All right, I think that's all about our research plans. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. Questions or comments for our presenter?
Bapak Ibu yang di Zoom, jika mau menyampaikan komen juga silakan, dipersilahkan.
I just have one comment and then we'll move into our tea break. But question 3 talks about population displacement and livelihood shifting. And sort of one of the cardinal rules of research questions, just ask one thing in each question. Those are two very different things: population displacement, livelihood shifting. So I would separate those out into two different questions, just to be very clear. Okay, what a wonderful morning. I've learned so much. I hope you have too. So let's take 30 minutes till 11 o'clock for a tea break, and we'll see people back here. And I think we might have 3 or 4 more to do, but we'll get those sorted over the break and get them organized. Thanks, everyone. Can you just move the Zoom video down to the bottom so we can see the top question? Please.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. So before we start, I want to do a little disclaimer that I am currently just a regular office worker and not an academician or research, and I haven't been studying for a
Anybody
long
can
time.
do research.
So I might need a lot of inputs and suggestion after this. So I actually kind of forget the title. Can we move to the first one? So, I have a clicker. Okay. So this is just
one slide. Back to the research question.
okay. 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 It's the title is about the exploring urban perspective and the possibility of being of mangrove peak to be a potential forest healing. I think I kind of forget the title that I write. And so the research problems that I think for this matter is first, the perception of the surrounding urban community toward the Pantai Indah Kapuk Mangrove Ecotourism Center as a natural green space, and how does it influence their daily activities? And then the second, how does the Pantai Indah Kapuk or Peak Mangrove Ecotourism Center contribute to the mental well-being and stress reduction of the surrounding urban community? And then the last one is, what are the potential constraints and possibilities for the Peak Mangrove Ecotourism to be a forest healing to the surrounding urban community? So that's all from me. Thank you very much.
I want you to apologize for your apology, because those are great research questions. And, when we hear from Tara in a little bit about, going into the literature, there's a huge literature on the importance of forest to human health and well-being. So you're spot on in terms of international research context. Any questions, comments? Okay, let's move on to the next one. Is that the one slide? Oh, that's you? Okay. One slide.
My ideas is about the coastal erosion in Bengkalis Island, on Bengkalis Island in Riau Province, and we have been trying to deal with this erosion for this last 3 years, and we are thinking about how to build to mitigate effectively the erosion. And nowadays, until now, we have an example of the successful mitigation by building breakwaters, but the existing breakwater is very expensive, so we cannot extend to fully along the length of the island. And so we are thinking about designing permeable dams that might be also as effective as the existing costly breakwaters to enhance the mudflat formation. This is to create more suitable condition for mangrove to re-establish naturally. And we are thinking about using the locally available materials that is fit for the construction of this design. And that is, I think, the core of our my proposal.
I think that's great. Questions, comments?
Sorry, I want to ask about what do you mean with the permeable dam? It is, I mean, man-made, not from natural. And what is the correlation with the NbS? Thank you.
That is the problem when I'm not allowed to show my slide. So could you go to the slide before this? Huh? This is the existing, the most effective breakwaters that protect the coastal line. But this is very expensive. 50 million for 1 meter square. Yeah, 50 million for 1 meter square. So this is the high cost. We are proposed another strategy using the local material-based structure, low cost but effective. This is the ultimate question about this design. So the next, to give the next slide, the next. This is the locally available materials. Nibung abundant on the islands, and traditionally Nibung trunk is used for piles to protect protection in the coastal area. This one, and we also have a lot of sago palm on the island, and the sago palm is harvested for the starch of the trunk, and this is the waste, the bark of the trunk. Yeah, you know, and we are proposing to use this material for our design. So we will not just copy for the researcher from the Netherlands that have successfully implemented in northern coast of Java, but we will adapt this idea to the local conditions.
I think this is great. I love that you're using local knowledge. Yeah, it's great. Great job.
Permeable dam, I haven't zoned your question. The next slide. The next slide. The permeable dam consists of one parallel to the coastal line. This one parallel to the coastal line, and this is what we call the groins. The groin is perpendicular to the coastal line. So we expect this is the existing condition. By establishing the structure, we will promote the accumulation of sediment on this, and this will promote the re-establishment of mangrove on this coastal line. This is the idea.
That's wonderful. Okay, who's next? Is this the same one, or did you just switch it to a new one?
I wait 20.
Oh, okay, good, good. Who's is this one? Come on up. Okay, good. Moving on.
Oh, okay.
Your turn.
Mbak, take a picture ya Mbak, buat laporan BKD. Assalamualaikum. My name's Pita from IPB. Only one slide, Miss. Yeah. This come from fact that climate change is the most complex problem because of its impacts are difficult to predict precisely and greatly affect the natural and social environment. Coastal areas are one of the ecosystem most affected. Most residents who are fishermen can go to sea because of high rainfall and high waves accompanied by strong winds. And one of the area is Muara Gembong. So my question is, what is the impact of climate change? Not what, how the impacts of climate change between women and men in the Muara Gembong coastal area. And the second, how is the strategies of women and men in the Muara Gembong to dealing with the impact? Thank you.
Questions, comments? Okay, I have one that everyone should listen to in terms of the scope of these questions. So when you say impact of climate change, are you talking about every single impact that climate change can have? Is it economic? Is it social? Is it cultural? Is it physical? Is it health? Is it political? Is it everything? Because if it's everything, you'll need 20 years instead of 1 year to do the research project. So I'm just going to encourage you to scope that down and think about the type of impact. And it can be more than one, but remember, you only have 12 months, right? Okay, next. Anybody? Oh, I think we have a taker.
Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning to. I would like to present our thinking, but it's not my research field. Actually, it's sort of thing that we can think of. Yesterday, my research question based on our cooperation project with government of Lampung Timur, that from my university we have about 800 hectares mangrove that develop with involvement of the society or community around the site. So my research question is, first is, what specific roles do men and women play in mangrove restoration effort in Lampung Timur? And then the continuing of the first research question is, what factors that could be influence the nature and extent of men and women to mangrove restoration? And the third research question is more specific about the social, economic, cultural, environment factor that contributes men and also women in mangrove restoration effort in Lampung Timur. I
Good
think
job.
that's
Yeah,
all.
that's
Okay.
great. And
Okay.
you can see how specific you are in that question, which is great. My only challenge to this group is to think about, what is the difference between this question and this question? Because even when you were introducing it, you said this is a more specific way to say this. So thinking, do you have 3 questions or 2?
I think it's quite similar between 2
Yeah,
and 3.
that's what I think. I think you have
Okay.
2 good questions, the first and the third. The middle one, if you took it out, you wouldn't lose anything. And I think it's good. Yeah.
Maybe I think the third is will be replaced the number 2. You know,
Yeah.
so more emphasized in this.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Good job. Good job.
Appreciate that. Okay, thank you.
We got anybody left or are we done?
Terima kasih, saya juga pakai bahasa Indonesia saja ya. Research question saya ada 3. Ini berangkat dari project yang memang sudah kami lakukan sebelumnya dalam rangka pendampingan masyarakat, di mana ada masyarakat lokal yang relatif homogen sukunya, yaitu suku Melayu yang hidup di pinggiran Sungai Siak. Mereka mayoritas pencahariannya adalah nelayan dengan mengambil ikan dari Sungai Siak. Nah, di situ kebetulan ada satu pulau kecil yang mereka beri namanya Pulau Semut. Dan sekarang mereka ingin mengembangkan Pulau Semut itu menjadi objek wisata alam. Di pinggir sungai itu secara sporadis dan jumlahnya masih sedikit, tumbuh satu jenis mangrove yang mana itu katanya dahulunya orang tuanya nanam di situ, tetapi tidak terencana dengan baik. Nah, sekarang dalam rangka mengembangkan ekowisata, mereka ingin mempercantik objek wisatanya itu dengan tumbuhan mangrove yang lebih banyak jenisnya maupun lebih banyak jumlahnya. Nah, oleh karena itu, dalam rangka mendukung gerakan mereka, ini perlu dilakukan riset. Ya, riset yang pertanyaan penelitian yang saya ajukan adalah yang pertama, what are the community aspiration regarding to the need for mangrove reforestation, which can support natural tourism on an island? And the second, what are the physical properties of the soil and river water at the project locations? And the third, what types of mangroves are suitable for growing on an island? Thank you.
I think that your questions are very, very good. And what I really like is how they tie together. This is a set of very good questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. Anybody? Nope. Okay. Anybody? Anybody? Okay, we're going to move on then. I think you have done an amazing job. We have an amazing series of sets of research questions that are going to take us to the next level. What's really important now is to be able to look into the literature to see who else has done things similar to what you're interested in and how you can use that literature to provide a strong rationale for your research questions, because that's going to be important to FINCAPES. And I'm going to turn it over to Tara to tell you all about that.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the next part of now what on the workshop outline about the literature review. So we're just going to change over back to our slides. I just also want to say everybody's slides is beautiful, very, very gorgeous. And I'm sorry that you didn't get enough time to show them all, but keep them around. Give everyone a round of applause for how beautiful they were. There's still more opportunities to interact with everyone. Perfect. Good. Okay, so now that we have our research question, how do we inform our research question with the relevant literature? And a lot of you have been doing that. That's why, our first half of the presentation, we all wanted to give that context. We wanted to show, what it is to answer and show you what our research question is. And it's a really important part of being able to do your research process. Before we continue on, is there anything that we can clarify for you at this point? Don't hesitate to find us during the breaks, during the lunch. We want to make sure that you're still following with the process because now we're getting into the nitty-gritty. So I just wanted to make sure that on your computers, have Slido open already. We are going to do a couple interactive sessions with you guys during this session. So I just want to make sure that you all still have Slido open. All you do is put slido.com, #NbS. So I'll give you a couple seconds just to make sure that you get that open. We don't have to be on the live poll yet. All right, and if we can go back to the PowerPoint slide. So just keep it open. Okay. So in the research process, where are we now? We're at the literature gap. So this is how we're going to inform our research question because we know that we have a problem. So why is this important to inform your research question? Well, a review of the relevant literature is integral to the research process. And I say relevant because it's important to know what is currently happening in this field of research. It also provides us an exposure to a larger body of knowledge. You know, when you're starting to think about your problem, you might have done a little bit of Google searching, but now it's looking at a larger body of knowledge. And this is important because a lot of you have great ideas, but it's also important to avoid duplication of the work that's already been done in the past. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, but strengthen the nature-based solutions. It also enables the researcher to identify the research gap that they are trying to fill. So you might think that there's a problem, but until you look at the literature, you'll really see, is there a research gap? And you'll be able to look at the previous literature and also look at what they've written about it and say, is there any other unanswered questions about the topic and the problem that you're trying to solve? And it also establishes the importance of your work. So it shows you that, you know, if you have a research gap, this is something that we need to address. So the literature review supports providing an understanding of the context. So a lot of you, you know, when we were sharing the presentations, it's so important to have an understanding of the context. Getting a knowledge of the background, the development of insights, so making connections across different research in an existing area of study. A literature review is a critical analysis of the research that supports and or contradicts your topic, which will help you refine your perspective. And that's really important because, you know, we saw a debate about with the drone, right? You're saying, I don't know if that will work, right? So when you look at the literature, it's important to know, will this work? Will this not work? The literature might already show you that evidence. So how do I start this process? How do I search for information? Part of being able to write a good research proposal is to have good search skills. So it's important that we learn how to develop an effective search strategy to ensure that our search strategy is suitable for the purpose of your search. So if I'm going to be talking about wetlands today, probably not going to be searching about beehives. Supporting a comprehensive yet manageable set of results. And I'll show you examples of what I mean by manageable, because we know that it can easily produce thousands and thousands of articles at once. And it also helps us review and refine your search. So Susan mentioned today that your research question that you've all come up with, it might change by the end of the day. And that also changes with the research, the strategy that you use. When you look at the literature, you're going to see that maybe this is something that you're going to change and tailor your question as you read literature. So the literature review, actually this should say 6 steps, I'm sorry. So the first step, just something easy for you guys to remember, is first you want to plan your search. So you want to understand your search. what exactly is your topic, and what's the nature of and extent of your search focused on. So we also want to identify the search concepts and alternative search terms related to your topic. And we're going to go through this step by step. So thinking about search terms, one tip that I have for you is, you've all seen different research articles. In research articles, there's also keywords. And Susan's had a great, when you were writing out, presenting your research questions, we have a whiteboard already filled with many different terms. So this is kind of just a cheat tip for you to think about when you're searching on your literature. If you already found an article that's really great, take a look at the keywords. That might help you. So I just want to bring up this example. This is from Dr. Brent Doverstein's presentation yesterday. He provided some examples of what applied nature-based solution research questions might be. So the one that he showed us was, how can mangrove protected area managers create better opportunities for local livelihoods? And so that was the context that he gave us. And so I want you to think about this question. So what we're going to do is, if we can activate the Slido, go on there, you're going to be able to list all the terms you think that are related to that question. And this is live, so I can see if this is happening. Just give us 1 second with the technology. And for those of you online as well, we hope you join in our Slido. So on your Slido, you should be able to see that there's a word cloud. You can put in all the terms that you think are related to the question. So it's important that you open the Slido, because if you don't remember the question, it's on the Slido. That's okay. Just think of simple words, right? A lot of these characters are not many letters in the word community or recognition. Just give us a little second. Hopefully you're thinking up some good terms. So we can't see it on here, but I see it on somebody's screen oh, there we go. Yay, technology. Yeah, so it's great to see that people are thinking about different terms, opportunities, governance, participation, mitigation. Wild honey, fish and crabs, I like this one. Mangrove, livelihood, sustainability, economic value. So you can see that there's a huge diverse of different terms related to the research question, right? That's the main purpose of this activity. Everybody here has a different perspective. And we've heard also during the research questions, the presentations, that you're all excited about each other's research. So really take this time to think about, during lunchtime or break time, who you want to connect with, because you'll come up with so many different terms here that you're seeing. Okay, thank you guys so much for participating in this activity. So if we can go back to the slide. Okay, so I went a bit more simple. I just wanted to show you very, very broadly. So with that research question, I thought, okay, maybe the terms that might come up are mangrove species, protected areas, livelihoods, economy, timber harvest license, non-timber license, women cooperatives. And I came up with these based on the context of the research question that Brent had given us. So what do you do with all this now that you've come up with these terms? Well, you can start searching. So Google Scholar is not a database. It's a research area where you can find other research, but I just want to put it here because it's easy to show you. If you just put in mangroves, you can get 709,000 results. And so what we were talking about before, right? You want to find and create a research strategy that's manageable. I don't think any of us can read 700,000 articles in one day. So step 2 is really important. We want to decide on the scope of our review. We want to know how comprehensive should it be, and think about how many years should it be covered. So just a quick example for just a case study for our lecture today is I put in last 10 years, and you can also determine what language of the articles you want to look into, because I said, you know what, maybe we're interested in this in the context of Indonesia. Well, then we should look at articles that are in English and Bahasa as well. And so when you customize this, you can see here, just putting in 10 years, that result from 700,000 already went to 19,200. So that's why it's really important to think about what your scope is for your literature review. So step 3, make a list of the databases that you will search. So you want to figure out which journals matters most in your field. Look at your library's research guides in your discipline to select discipline-specific databases. I don't know how extensive your library is at your institution, but this is also if you're not part of an academic institution, having an academic part of your research team is a really good access to these type of journals. And if you have a librarian, I did check IPB's website, they do have librarians. Make an appointment with your librarian. They are trained to do this. They will help you refine your search strategy. They know what's the best databases and the journals out there. They're an amazing resource. And also, ask other people in your field if you're not sure. Colleagues are the best kind of resources. So just wanted to show you, this is University of Waterloo's library, and it's actually easy to access. It's free still. Getting into the database is where it's harder, but what you can do is just, if you search in University of Waterloo Library, you can actually already filter out the different disciplines. And so if we just filter out environment, resources, and sustainability, these databases, there's 22 of them that they recommend. And so your library at your academic institution might have the same kind of process as well. or you can just do a search on other academic institutions, because oftentimes just accessing to know what the research guide is or database is free to access. So for our example, I was thinking that the database might be the Nature, Elsewhere. So we saw somebody who published earlier, that was an Elsewhere, Scopus, Geoscience World. This is just based on what I found in our University of Waterloo library. This will change depending on your research topic and your discipline. So again, Google Scholar is a great way to use as a web search engine, but it's not a database. It's useful to identify databases. I just want to highlight that as well. And so because a lot of us might not know, we're coming from different backgrounds, different institutions, I want you to go back onto your Slido again and think about databases that you've used for nature-based solutions or your field of research. And if you can share that on Slido, this way everybody in the room will have access to it later. And that's just such an amazing free way to figure out what everybody's using. So if you can take the time to just fill out on Slido, there's an open text where you can just put in all the journals, all the articles that you know that is a great resource for your area of research. And we'll share this at the end of the day as well in the presentations, because now you can have a reference to go back, and everybody in the room here is experts. So it's about sharing resources as well. And so I'm assuming like marine environmental, these are journals or databases. I'm interested to know who wrote the public or perish, publish or perish. And so hopefully those who are coming in from academic backgrounds, this might be a useful tool for you, because then you can also realize, okay, so these are some of the academic based databases that I can use to get started on my literature review. And so we'll keep this open until the end of the workshop. So you can just add in if you remember something that you've used in the past for your master's thesis, your undergrad, or any journal that you've read before that you're like, hey, maybe somebody in this room would benefit from that. So we can go back to the PowerPoint slide. Okay, so now we've identified our database. What the next step is to do is to create a search string. So how many of you have done a search string before? Just raise your hand. Don't be shy. I see a little hands. So some general tips that I just want to give to you. Every database is different, but a search string is essentially what you put in together of the terms that you searched, and it helps narrow down the articles. So just some general tips. This is what most databases will look out for, is that if you use quotation marks, it makes sure that the word is searched together. So for example, mangrove species versus mangrove and species are two different types of concepts. So if we want to search mangrove species, we have to put quotation marks with it. The word or is also very important. So or means it combines different synonyms for the same subject. So in the terms that in the example I'd shown mangrove, and I also put under there mangrove species, because sometimes in keywords in the abstracts, they might be using the word mangrove or mangrove species or another term. So these are synonyms, and you want to think about all the synonyms that are related to your term. And so when we put that in a search term, we put the word or in between to make sure that we capture that as well. And then the word and is very important because it combines different subjects. So if you go back to that research question, we're not just talking about mangroves, but we're thinking about it from the economic development, the livelihoods. So we need to add the word livelihood in there. And so when we put the words in the search term, we have mangrove and livelihoods. So what I've done here is going back to the original example. These are the terms that I came up with from that question. And this is very simple. The ones that you might have might be long. A search strategy could actually be over a page or just a few words, but for the literature review, start simple. So what I've done is you can see that there's different colors. And the reason I did that is just to show you that maybe these are the three kind of terms that I'm putting together. Mangrove and mangrove species, protected areas is a separate term, livelihoods, economy, and Indonesia. And so if we put that search string together, what it would look like is mangrove or mangrove species and protected areas and livelihoods and economy and timber harbor license or non-timber license or women cooperative and Indonesia. Does that make sense so far in how we've put those terms together? I'm seeing a good nod heads. If it doesn't, don't worry. Practice makes perfect. So step 5, now that you have a search string, you want to conduct your search and find the literature. And again, I emphasize, you will revise it if you need to do it, and you want to keep track of your search. This is really important because keeping track of your search strategy helps you realize, okay, maybe the first one that I put in, I got 0 results. Maybe I'm being too narrow. And then if you put it in and it's 100,000 results, maybe that's too much. So that helps you figure out what you need to do. Some tips when you conduct your search is you want to review the abstracts of the research studies because that'll also tell you if you're on the right track. So if you put in your search strategy and you have an abstract that's completely off topic, well, then maybe there's something in your search strategy that's causing this as an issue. So you want to go back and look at that. So keeping a copy of the searches you conduct is really important. And it also helps when you're at the stage of publishing as well, because you can keep that on hand. You can also use the bibliographies or the references of research studies that you already have to find other articles that you might be interested in. And then we'll go into different reference management tools that will help you keep track of your research. And so, it might not work for all the databases that we talked about. So I put as an example here, the search strategy that I just shared with you into Scopus. And look, no documents were found. Well, maybe this wasn't the database to use. So I'd put it into Google Scholar to see what's going on. Well, through this filter, I found 3 articles related to the search strategy. And so I started looking into, okay, so I see Elsevier here. So maybe Elsevier is the database to search instead of Scopus. And then I started playing around. I was like, okay, so maybe I have to change some of these terms. And then I took away Indonesia and I found 4 results. Because sometimes you don't need the geography context depending on how you're writing your literature review. And then I took out the end and I wrote, okay, what happens if I just wrote and nature-based solutions? And then I got 710 results. So you can see that changing your search strategy changes the articles that you're going to get. And so it's a really useful tool to help you figure out how do you inform your research question. And so again, reading through the abstract is a really important way to take a look if, say, this article is relevant or not. So, you see the word mangroves in there, but then they start talking about restoration and climates, focusing on hydrology. So maybe that's not exactly answering the context for our research question, which was on livelihoods. But then you can also look at the side. Most of the databases have this where they have recommended articles. That's also a great way for you to be able to find other relevant literature to support your research question. So this should say step 6, review the literature. So now that you've done your search strategy, you've found the literature, what do you do now? Well, you need to analyze it. So these are some questions for you to figure out how do you analyze your research. When you're looking at the article, now you're going beyond the abstract. Now you're reading the entire article and seeing what was the research questions of the study that you're reviewing. What were these authors trying to discover? Was the research funded by a source that could influence the findings? That's actually really important to consider because we know that organizations that influence can actually change the outcome of the research. What were the research methodologies used? Does the research seem to be complete? So sometimes when you're reading articles, you can figure out, okay, so maybe this article isn't actually telling the whole story, it's just a lot of words. So making sure that you take a look at the article to make sure that this is an article that's answering your research question and informing it. And what further questions does it raise? There might not be any that you're thinking of right away when you read the article, but it also helps you figure out, okay, so actually after I read this, it does provide me some context, but I have more questions. And that helps you figure out your research question, your research problem. So what we're going to do before lunch is we have sticky notes on your tables. And what I want you to do, and for those of you online, just grab a piece of paper or use it on Word. Because you're here in person, the sticky notes are here for you to use. So I want you to write out all the relevant terms related to your research question that you came up with yesterday. And try to think about it from one term per sticky note. You have a lot of sticky notes, don't worry about using them. Take the time to also identify the search criteria, so perhaps the geography or the location that you're interested in. Think about a database that you want to use. Slido is still open, so you can go back and look for ideas. And then start writing out a search strategy using the general tips with quotation marks and or. Now, if you have time, the internet is working a lot better today, so you can start conducting your search. And then also read an abstract and see if you need to revise or refine it. So I think we'll do this until the lunchtime. And if you guys have any questions, I'll come around to help out. So one of the steps I mentioned was using reference management tools. These are the ones I'm going to introduce to you are free. Anybody can download them. And it's really useful to organize your sources because what we know is with every research proposal, when you're reading literature, you need a way to keep track of what you're reading. And you're also going to have to provide a reference list. And we all hate keeping track of our reference lists. So why should you use a reference management software? Well, the obvious one, it saves you time. And it also ensures consistent referencing. This is really important because your proposal is going through a committee. They're going to look at the reference list. And if the funding proposal calls for a certain citation, also pay attention to that as well. These softwares can do your work for you. It also helps you keep track of what you read. Like I said, you're reading a lot of different articles now. You're seeing a lot of literature. You can keep track of it on a Word document, but on the side, but once you go into a deep dive, it's hard to keep track of what's happening. So it's important because it also helps you keep your research organized. And I always think that it's great to enhance your digital literacy skill. So one of the tools that I'm just going to show you today is Mendeley. So Mendeley is a free tool that you can install. You can put it onto your laptop. You can download it onto a Chrome extension. Most of us use Microsoft Word plugins, so it's easy. You can embed it in. And what it does is helps simplify the process. So at the end of the day, you'll get a copy of the slides. The link is here on how you can download it. For Apple users, there's always a version as well to take a look at. And so I like Mendeley because it helps you store, organize, and search all your references from just one library. And so what I mean by a library is that everything is together in one area. You can insert references, bibliographies straight into your Word document. And it also uses something called Mendeley Cite. So I'm not sure if you've heard of MLA, APA. These are popular citation methods. Different disciplines use different types of citation. Sometimes it's a tiring process to go back to the website, figuring out, okay, is it author first, year first, journal article? Do I italicize it? Does it for you? All you do is you just drag and drop PDF files straight into the software. You can also read, highlight, annotate PDFs, which is really good because, we're trying not to print a lot of articles. Also, if you have so much literature that you're looking at, printing can be very tiring, and then you keep it on your desk and it just collects dust. So keeping your thoughts across multiple documents in one place is really useful as well, because you can make the connection at the end about how these documents are supporting your research question. Mendeley can also help you collaborate with others, so you can share your references and ideas. And they have this option where you can follow other researchers through social media functionality. What this means is there might be other global groups out there working on wetlands, peatlands, bees, Indonesia. Different types of groups are being created. And the whole point about knowledge is that they love to share. So there's a lot of great resources, and then it's also useful if you're working on a group of teams, some of you are working together, you don't want to always have to find time to meet together to go through one computer. By being able to collaborate, you can keep all your files in one place. So this is just a picture of how it looks like on your desktop. So you can see that, you can install a Microsoft plugin, you upload your PDF files, it automatically puts in the abstract. You can also filter it by adding certain tags. So if you're seeing an article and you say, hey, this one's really important for gender empowerment, or this one's really important for drones, you can put your own tag in here, because then at the end, when you upload the PDF, and then you go with your day, by the end of the day, you forget what you're doing. Tomorrow, when you go back to the office, you just search up the word that you put as a tag, and then you'll find your article again. So it makes it easy. This is the function in Word. So if you end up downloading it into your Microsoft Word, you'll see here that it adds in a section for references. And so essentially, you just put in the reference, the author that you're looking for, and it puts it inside the Word document for you. So here's an example of the bibliography that it can just create. So it can do the in-text citation. So if you're typing out one of the facts that you got to support your research question for your background, you just insert the reference, and then it automatically populates it with a reference as well. So it helps you keep track and making sure that you're not skipping a step, because making sure that you provide the citation for where you got the information from is really important for a good research proposal. And there's lots of support available online. I just searched up my YouTube, and I think because I'm already in Indonesia, it automatically gave me all my videos in Indonesia. But this is a very popular video that I found. There's tutorials on how you can, find out how to use Mendeley. So you can go home and you're like, okay, didn't understand what Tara said today in class, but I'm gonna Google this and YouTube it. Honestly, the videos are really great for this. All the websites also have really good help guides. So if you have questions, there's pretty much anyone else had the same question as you. So don't worry, if you Google the question, somebody will be able to answer it. You'll find the answer somewhere. And Mendeley is a very popular tool to use. Here's another one, Zotero. So I'm not sure how many people have used Zotero before. Very similar to Mendeley. In the end, it's your preference which one you want to choose. Just want to give you guys a couple options of free web tools that are available. So Zotero acts as a free personal assistant. It loves Firefox, so it started out with Firefox. But you can also use it as a desktop app that connects to Google Chrome, Safari, Firefox, and similarly, it has a plugin. And so I also put the link here, so when you go home and see the slides, you'll be able to download it if you like Zotero. So Zotero is also really cool because it can automatically sense related research as you browse the web. So if you have the extension on your Google Chrome and you started to do some searches, sometimes it actually automatically populates it for you. So it's learning as you're searching. it actually automatically grabs the PDF file and the relevant citation information. And when you open it on your desktop, you will find it already. But it's important, you need internet for this. It also allows you to organize the research in any way you want. So you can organize them into different collections, tag them with keywords, or create save searches. And we were mentioning before, having a copy of your save search is important so you know which strategy you use for your search engine. You can also create the public private groups for collaboration. And so here today, you have a great resource. Everybody's searching from a different journal, most likely. Creating a group like this allows you to share the research with each other. So this is an example of what it looks like on the desktop. This is actually my Zotero, but I organized it from different groups here. And then you can see here, I didn't upload the PDF file myself. It just did it for me. So there was a copy online and it put it inside. And what's great about it is also when I open up a journal article, it automatically shows up on the side. Okay, do you want to save it to your library? So it's smart, it's learning. And then you can put it into the category that you want to. And so similarly to Mendeley, this is an example of how you can highlight inside your library. So it keeps the text here. You can go through the information, saves the paper. Because we know that, some articles are really long. You want to be able to highlight very easy. So again, lots of support available for free. So I tried to Google Zotero, and they also have tutorials in Bahasa. So lots of tools available. So I'm going in to show you some analysis tools. And analysis tools is useful for remote collaboration. So now it's going to that last step where you're reviewing the entire article and you're trying to figure out what information is important, which one do I want to keep. So these are really useful as well because it saves you time. But instead of just being a reference management software tool, it actually can help you identify themes, patterns, gaps, contradictions in your literature review. Just taking it a bit further. It can help you keep track of what you're reading, and it also allows you to keep your research organized. You can set up different tools with people across the world. So you're thinking about partnering up with the Faculty of Environment at Waterloo. Using analysis tools is really great because you can still work together from different time zones, different geographic regions. And again, enhances your digital literacy skills. We know that every day there's new things coming out. It's good to keep up with what's happening. So what I'm going to show you today is Covidence. So Covidence is a free web-based tool. What it's used for is it helps you screen the abstracts, and it's a data extraction tool that saves time. So the difference between a reference management tool is that you're reading articles on it and it makes your reference list and bibliography. But what Covidence does is that it can, the end product, you can download it as an Excel document. And so all the categories of the themes that you're looking for in an abstract or the article, you have it easily accessible and you're not copying and pasting onto Word documents and trying to stay organized that way. It is also used for conducting systematic reviews, but you can also just use it for a literature review. So there's a lot of applications of all of these tools. And what I love about it is that anyone can be a collaborator. So as academic institutions, your university might actually give you a license that lets you create as many reviews as you want. But there is a free option for people to just join in, and they can also join in the Covidence reviewing. And you don't have to be affiliated with the academic institution. So we're using this right now in the project that Susan mentioned for our climate health vulnerability assessment, where we have someone from a public health unit looking at the articles that we're using. And that's really great because then we can interact with not just academia, but industry, nonprofits, and civil-based organizations. So what it looks like is you set up kind of a review. You can select the area of research. And so there's like Earth Environmental Sciences, which might work for here. You put in your search strategy. And then you can also decide how many reviewers you want to screen an article, have a full text review, and for data extraction. And that's important when you're doing more of a systematic review because you want somebody else to look at the article that you're looking at. And so you import your references, and there's different processes. So if you're taking on methodologies, not specifically for this call, which is applied research, but if you're doing a systematic review, this is a type of tool where you can go through abstract and titles, and it filters out, is this abstract something that belongs to the scope of this research question? And then it allows you to also look at the full text. And then the extraction is where you're pulling out the data that matters to your research question. So I just wanted to show you an example of what we were doing for one of our projects. We were looking at air quality in public health units in different regions. And so we created different indicators that what we wanted to look at in an article. So I wanted to know what the pollutants and allergens are in this environment. So we created kind of an inclusion criteria. Does it have nitrogen oxide? Does it have sulfur dioxide? And so as a person who's being able to look at the article, you can check mark on the side and decide, okay, does this article include this or not? And for systematic reviews, not for this project I mentioned, but it's important to have two people take a look at the article. And so it's great because you can see that two people are working on it at the same time and it's happening live. So it's really good for global collaboration. And it also allows you to make sure that, just because I read an article and I said this belongs in this article, how do I know that I didn't accidentally miss something? So if there's ever a disagreement with the other person, you have to get consensus, which is really good for getting good quality research, and publications are looking for this kind of output. And so we were talking about Prisma in the back table as well. So it creates a Prisma table diagram. So this is something for if you're doing systematic reviews, again, not specifically for this call proposals. I just wanted to show you for publications, they'll ask you, okay, how many did you include? How many did you exclude? It does it for you. And this is a really nice way of streamlining the process. But the most important, even for a literature review, is the way that it can extract the data. So now that you've gone through the articles and you're saying, hey, like this sentence was really important for my research, it'll take it out, you can extract it as an Excel file, and then now you have a reference for when you're writing your research proposal that you have all of your data in one place. And it makes writing the proposal a lot easier because you have that data, you know where you got it from, and you can put in the support. So really the emphasis of this is that there's so many tools available now on the web. And a lot of them are becoming more and more easy to access, they're free. And so, I've shown you 3 different types of softwares, tools. Make sure that you just choose what works for you. Because what I like might not be what you like. Maybe you don't even like any of these tools and you just want to download, print, do the hard copy way. That's totally fine. Everybody has their preference. It's all about trial and error. But what I also wanted to show you is, I know that everybody has told me so far, take a picture for Instagram, right? We all love social media. Well, for academics and research, I want to say that Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter are actually really great tools to find other tools. Because there's a global community of people who are just wanting to share, a new software that came out. This is why we did the previous activity with Slido, just talking about the different databases that you use, So I put the 3 hashtags here because these are the most common ones that I use if I want to learn a new tool. You don't have to be doing a PhD to look at PhD tools. It's just content. but people are creating content, they're sharing different ways. We're talking about artificial intelligence over there. You know, there's so many new things happening and ways to make our time easier, ways to help you find research, do your literature review. And so I just want to say, do not hesitate to use this as a way to find out what works for you. So at this point with the literature review, I just want to ask you, is there anything that we can clarify for you before we move on? Thumbs up? All good? Everybody so sleepy from lunch? I have a question from Susan.
Are these all brand new to you in the room, or have you been using these tools? You have? Yes. Okay. So who's used Covidence? No. Who has used Mendeley? Good. Who has used Zotero? Couple people. Okay. Good. That's good to know. I just want to tell you an interesting story about Mendeley that I found out. So I am an editor for a couple of journals that are published through Elsevier. They're the largest and oldest publishing house in the world. They actually published Galileo. That's how old they are. And there were actually 3 PhD students in England who didn't like any of the software packages for organizing their literature. So they invented their own. And that's what Mendeley was. And Elsevier found out about it and bought it from them. They became incredibly rich. So just think about that as you're doing your lit searches and using things. You could actually, make a few tweaks, create an app, make a lot of money.
Yeah, and for those of you who have never used it before, well, a lot of people here have, so you can ask them questions and feel free to share that knowledge because saving time is something that we all love to do. Yes. I'm going to give you this so our Zoom participants can hear.
So different from other analytical tools, I think that in the Confidence we have reviewers.
So you're asking what the difference between having a reviewer is,
Yeah.
or why we would use that?
Uh,
Yeah, so it's really important to have, if you're doing this systematic review, and that's a different type of methodology, not specifically for the applied nature-based solutions for this call, but what it does is that when you're reading an article and you're looking for specific categories of the information, having 2 people on looking at the data is really important. And so it helps promote high quality research. It brings that rigor up. So it's really important that somebody else is also looking at the same article as you to make sure that you don't miss anything.
So I'm a very concrete thinker, and so sometimes it's easier for me when I think of examples. So we have just done a systematic review of, so there's an illness in the world. It's not just in Canada. It's a global illness called lupus. There's a fancy name for it, but it's too hard for me to pronounce. But so we call it lupus. And 99 out of 100 people who have lupus are women. We don't know why. And it's much higher prevalence in women of color. So in the US, it's African American women, Latino women. In Canada, it's Indigenous women. So we think that there are a lot of social environmental factors that might be influencing the prevalence of this illness. And we have started using a framework which is called social epigenetics, right? So we talked about the genetics of trees today, genetics of species. Epigenetics is, the epidemiology of your genetics. And there is a literature now that says you have all this stuff happening in your body, but some of the things that happen around you can actually trigger something. So you might have a predisposition to have lupus, but for whatever reason, it doesn't come out in you. but there might be social cues that bring it out in you. So we wanted to do a systematic review of the literature to see if there was any empirical evidence for this crazy theory that we had come up with. So as Tara pointed out, the first time you put your search terms into the literature, we ended up with 20,000 papers. And we put them into Covidence because Covidence, the first thing that Covidence will do is remove the duplicates for you automatically. And that is so important when you're doing any kind of lit review or systematic review. So you might have the same paper being picked up by Scopus and Web of Science and PubMed and Google Scholar. So it immediately removes the duplicates for you. Once the duplicates were removed, then we do the title and abstract review, and then we remove more papers. We went from 20,000 to seven papers addressing that. And then we actually had several reviewers reviewing each of those papers. So we had one PhD student who reviewed all the papers, and then they were assigned a second reviewer. And then they were assigned a third reviewer who was actually, we work a lot with knowledge users. She was a patient research partner. So someone who had the illness was actually a researcher on the team with us. So she was the third reviewer. So we can each go in individually, no matter where we are in the world, and we can review the papers according to our data extraction tool. So is it a quantitative study or a qualitative study? How big was the sample? What was the study design? Was it a randomized controlled trial? Was it a case control study? Was it a cohort study? Was it a cross-sectional study? What were the significant findings? Was there any theoretical framework that was used in the study? All of these things. And we don't all see all the papers all the same way. And so in the end, if there's a discrepancy, as Tara pointed out, then we would have a meeting of all the reviewers and say, well, you know what? I thought this was a quantitative paper. You thought it was qualitative. Why did you think that? And then we come to a decision. It's a wonderful tool, and I know it doesn't, doing systematic reviews is really not part of this call because the work is going to be very applied. But I would plant the seed with you to think about that. If you are young, early career researchers wanting to build your CV, your scholarly record, the tools now are so useful, like Covidence. I was going to use the word expeditious, but it doesn't take that much time. And if you had a team of researchers that you could use Covidence with. So did they use Covidence in GAMI?
Yeah, so we used the Global Adaptation Mapping Initiative, where we had the first systematic review on the climate adaptation strategies, and we used Covidence for it. So, you know, it was a team of volunteers. Like I said, sometimes you didn't even know who was working on the other, but sometimes that's important because it's blinded. So you don't have that bias looking at the paper, and you're looking at different perspectives.
Yeah, and in that one, all of those volunteers, my recollection is each of the volunteers, who were mostly PhD students, postdocs, they didn't get paid for this. Their promise was they'd get their name on a paper, which they did, which is always important and worth sometimes more than money if you're an early career researcher. They each did 50 papers. And there must have been like 100 volunteers. It was a huge database. And so in my preparation for coming here and doing my homework, I actually found a paper which is a systematic review of systematic reviews of nature-based solutions. How cool is that? And so, you know, thinking about what GAMI did, let's just get an army of volunteer PhD students to do a systematic review of everything that we know about nature-based solutions and publish a whole bunch of papers out of it. Very, very low cost, huge payoff. We would say big bang for your buck, really large return on investment. And these tools like Covidence allow you to do it really simply, and it doesn't matter where in the world you are to do it. And it's free, right? Anybody can download Covidence and start using it. And it is so intuitive to use, even I can use it.
Yeah, and I think also what's important to think about is like when you're right now you're at your search strategy and we've been trying to narrow it down, right? Like for the example here, they searched up 3,694 studies, but only 7 studies were included. So that might actually even happen while you're looking at your literature right now. You find so many literature, but how many are you actually going to use? So these are the type of tools that you can use that are available to help you figure that out.
I also just want to point out, and Brent Doberstein suggested to us that we talk a little bit about Prisma, but we said, well, systematic reviews are not really part of this call, but Prisma are, I forget what that acronym stands for. Has anybody heard of Prisma before? Okay, so these are the guidelines that guide systematic reviews. So when you are submitting your systematic review for potential publication, for example, the editor of the journal who's reviewing your paper will look for the fact that you used Prisma guidelines to do it. And this is what's called a Prisma, what's it called? I'm getting tired now. What's it called? The Prisma diagram. Okay, so when you submit your systematic review for publication, we will expect to see a Prisma diagram. And it will say, we start 3,694 studies. We got rid of 776 duplicates. We ended up with 2918. We took out 2897 that were irrelevant. We should have actually said in that box for these reasons. We ended up with 21 full text studies assessed for eligibility. 14 were excluded, and they expect that you put in the reasons why. 7 were an inappropriate study design, inappropriate intervention, and 1 ended up being a duplicate that we didn't catch. And we end up with 7 studies. They will expect that diagram in your systematic review. The huge advantage of using Covidence to do your review is that it will create this diagram for you, because it'll take all the data that you've put in and immediately, generate that diagram for you. Questions, comments? We've actually Tara checked with ITB. Like, you have access to most of the journals in the world. Like, you've got a good library, you've got a good librarian. I love librarians. They're my favorite people in the world because they will stay up all night thinking about how to solve your problem.
I'm very interesting about Prisma in confidence. Maybe we can see the practice or something like that. For example,
you want to see confidence live?
Confidence, because we are not familiar with confidence.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. Because I mean, from 2 to 2:30, we were going to do some group table stuff about lit reviews. I think you're all in pretty good shape. So if we have to cut that down a bit, I think that's fine. Tara can actually bring up our project that we're working on right now, which is this is our project where in the province within which we live, it's divided up into jurisdictions that are individual health units that are responsible for the health of the population, right? And one of them has come to us to say, our bosses have told us we have to figure out how vulnerable we are to climate change in this health unit, and we don't know how to do that. Will you help us? All the many of the other health units in the province had already done that. They had already done what's called a vulnerability assessment. How vulnerable is your population to climate change? So we actually did a review of those vulnerability assessments, and we used Covidence to organize that search and all the information, all the data we got from it. So can you go live from your computer?
Can I share my Zoom screen?
Perfect. So now you're going to see what Covidence is like in real life. This is our...
Avoid all my tabs. I'm sorry.
You're doing what, Lep?
You see all my tabs on my desktop. So here is where we imported our references. So you can import them based on the actual file or the text of the citation. And so here you can see 6 duplicates were removed. The reason for that specifically for this project was because we were testing it out. And so here you can see the team's progress. All of these articles were included because we had a specific scope for this project, so they were all included. But you can already like at the title and abstract screening, you can see how many articles you uploaded, if there were any conflicts. 1 vote means that one person thought that that abstract was important, and so that means that there is a conflict, versus no votes means that it should not have been included. So you can also see that data live.
Sorry, can I just pause you there? So when you're doing your systematic review and you've eliminated your duplicates, and then you're looking at abstracts and titles, having more than one person do that review is really useful when you're writing your methodology for your publication. So this article meets the inclusion criteria, but another reviewer might think, no, this doesn't meet the inclusion criteria. So each reviewer goes in, reads the abstract and title and says, yep, it should be included. Nope, it shouldn't be included. And then at the end of the day, once both reviewers or 3 reviewers or however many you have gone through all those, you can see where the discrepancies are. You sit down, resolve them, decide together, this one belongs, this one doesn't.
And so the next stage of the process is if they go through with the abstract, then you want to look at the faux text review. Again, specifically for this project, all of them were included, but it's the same process as Susan just mentioned. You still have 2 people reviewing. You can set it up however you need it to be, but you can identify the conflicts. And then here is where you see the extraction. So this is where you would start going through the articles, highlighting and check marking what information was important to take out of this article. And so what's really nice about Covenants as well is it gives you a quality assessment template and a data extraction template. So when you're doing systematic reviews, sometimes they will even ask you, what is the quality of the article you're looking at? And you can set this up. So as an editor, you can put in your inclusion criteria, your exclusion criteria, the information you're looking for. For example, looking at methodology, did it collect primary data, secondary data?
So Yuki was our other reviewer. You just saw her name at the top there.
And just on the main page, there's just a little button that just says Prisma. So all you do is click it. And it shows you live how many studies were imported. So as I mentioned, for this one, 6 duplicates were identified. And you can figure out that some of them you can do it manually, or Covenants will do it for you. And so we were looking at 13 different documents, 13 full texts went through, and 13 studies were included. And what's nice about the Prisma is you can just download this as a Word document, and now you have a diagram made for you for your article as well, or your report.
So from the data extraction tool, we know which reports talked about we collected primary data, we only analyzed secondary data, we did interviews with people, we had focus groups, whatever they did to collect their data. And we also know the outcomes, the findings. So are you worried about too many hot days, too many cold days, flooding, storms, and so on? So it's an amazing tool. So yeah, as Tara says, just go online and play with it and see what it's like. And there are so many YouTube videos. That's where I go when I don't know what to do. Find a YouTube video that'll tell me how to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Confidence is like one of the best videos out there to show you step by step and answer almost every question you have. And their support, no matter what language you're going to email them in, they love to help out.
Perfect. So we're going to give you till 2:30 to just play around with some of the tools and see if you can find some background literature that's going to inform and provide a rationale for your research questions. It's at this time that you might start thinking, oh, maybe I need to change my question a little bit, or it's going to look a little bit different. So let's just take 20 minutes to do that. And then at 2:30, I'm going to come back and we're going to move to the next block in the research process, which is conceptualization and operationalization. My friends, let's go to the next two boxes in our research process. You are now experts in designing research. But the purpose of a proposal, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I went to the ladies already. You are now experts in designing research. But the purpose of a research proposal is to convince other people that you know what you're talking about so that they give you money. It's all about the money, right? So our next two boxes are conceptualization and operationalization. How do we define stuff? As people were presenting their research questions, I came up with about 40 different concepts that were mentioned. And I just want to point out that some of these are really big concepts. Well-being, for example. We use that word, we say well-being. How's your well-being? Health and well-being. What do we mean when we say that? In fact, it's such a big concept that I made a pitch to Elsevier, the publisher that I was talking about earlier, that published Galileo in the 1500s, to say we need an entire journal for well-being research. And they said yes. So I am now the editor of the journal called Wellbeing, Space, and Society. So if any of you write a paper about mangroves and well-being in Indonesia, send it to me. I'll see what I can do for you. Some concepts are very contested. We think it's okay to use those words, but if we use them with certain audiences, people get upset. One of those concepts is vulnerable. For example, in Canada, we have an Indigenous population. We are now 40 million people in Canada, which is crazy. Huge country, tiny little population. It's because no one likes the cold. 4% of our population are Indigenous. The Europeans, my ancestors, who came to settle Canada, which is a nice way of saying, come and steal all the resources and be mean to the Indigenous population, they did some terrible things to the Indigenous population. Our Indigenous population, their life expectancy is 10 to 15 years less than the rest of the Canadian population. That's how their lives are. Suicide is the #1 cause of death. because they're so unhappy, so distressed because of what we did, what the settlers did. So we refer to them as vulnerable populations, vulnerable groups. But you know what? When we say that to them, they get very angry. How dare you tell me I am vulnerable? I am not vulnerable. I am strong because I'm still here, even after everything you did. I am not vulnerable. You made me vulnerable. You took away my rights. You took away my resources. You took away my language. You took away my culture. You made me vulnerable. So we need to think about how we're using these concepts and about whom we're speaking. So concepts are big, they're contested, and they're idiosyncratic. What I mean by that is, I know what I mean when I say a word. You may mean something different, right? So I noticed today when people were doing their research questions, I heard the word ecotourism, and I also heard natural tourism. Are they the same thing? I'm not sure. Different people used different terms. They might mean different things in their minds, right? And so that's why the most important thing in this context, when you are writing your research proposals, is to justify. When I say ecotourism, I mean this, and this is why. This is why I'm defining it this way. And not only that, 12 other people in the literature define it this way. Just with evidence. So I'm going to take you through this exercise now. At 3 o'clock, we'll break for tea, and then we'll come back and you're going to work on conceptualizing and operationalizing the key words that you're using. Okay? So conceptualization and operationalization. How do we define stuff? Concept. All of those things are concepts. What does this word mean? They are ideas or mental representations of things. What is vulnerability? It's a representation of a person's state of being. What is ecotourism? It is a thing that we made up. A concept can appear in a research project as either a dependent or an independent variable. Quantitative folks in the room, where's my actuarial scientist person? There she is. They will know, that I always try and remember, an independent variable affects the dependent variable, right? So a concept can be on either side of that equation. What does a word mean to you? How do you define it? How do you define vulnerable? How do you define ecotourism? And what concepts are included in your research question that you are going to have to define and then figure out how to measure? That's the operationalization part. What does operationalization mean? The process of converting those concepts, vulnerability, ecotourism, gender, displacement. The process of converting those concepts into indicators or specific questions in a questionnaire or an interview or a measurement scale. I was going to say tool, measurement scale. How am I going to know displacement when I see it? How am I going to know vulnerability when I see it? How am I going to know ecotourism when I see it? And what concepts in your research questions do you have to operationalize? How will you know things when you see them? Our forestry person gave a wonderful talk this morning about, I need to find this kind of tree. I will know this tree when I see it because it has this type of leaf, this type of bark, this type of root. this genetic makeup? How will you know a vulnerable person when you see one? How will you know a community when you see one? So I'm going to work through some examples with you. The first, my PhD dissertation. Who at this table over here was interested in waste? That's you, yeah. And we bonded because my PhD dissertation was about garbage. I spent 4 years of my life writing a PhD dissertation and many peer-reviewed publications about garbage. The title of my PhD dissertation, published in 1992, a long time ago, Psychosocial Impacts of Exposure to Environmental Contaminants. That's the title of my PhD dissertation. So I look at my title and I find the key concepts there. Psychosocial, impacts, exposure, environmental contaminants. What do those things mean? I have to define them and I have to justify them. In that case, it wasn't justifying them to a funding agency. It was worse, right? Because when you're doing your PhD, those of us who have been through that process, you have to justify that to your supervisor. Tara has to do this with me all the time. Why are you doing it that way? And you have to justify it to your PhD committee. Little side note, I was 6 months pregnant during this process of justification, and I had this plan in my back pocket that if things went bad, I was going to fake labor. Because they were, of course, in those days, all men on my committee. So I thought, if things go really bad, I'm just going to fake labor. Nobody will know. And I'll just get myself out of this situation. It all worked out okay. And the child was born just fine. Okay. Exposure. How do I define that? The state of having no protection from something harmful. That's how that concept is defined. Environment. When I teach about environment, I use Einstein's definition of environment. Einstein said, the environment is everything that's not me. Now, he's a pretty good reference in my proposal for my definition. Can't beat Einstein. But you may have a different definition of environment. But when I talk about environment, I talk about the physical environment, the social environment, cultural environment, the economic environment, everything that's not me. So, what is psychosocial? Relating to the interrelation of social factors and individual thought and behavior. Psychology and social behavior mixed into one. We now see, in fact, the project I was talking about earlier about women with lupus, we actually talk about biopsychosocial now. Your biology interacting with your psyche, interacting with your social environment. At this time, we were just talking about the social and the behavioral. Impacts, a marked effect or influence. That's what I mean when I'm saying impacts. So if I bring those two together, and this is where it got tricky for me, because this was a very new area of research at the time that I was doing it. So I made this up. There was no operational definition of what psychosocial impacts were. I had to come up with one. Now, I didn't just pull it out of the air. I read a lot of books. And of course, in those days, you had to go to the library. You couldn't search it online. You had to physically get there. And remember, I was very pregnant. It was a long walk to the library. So I used everything that I learned to come up with this operational definition or this conceptual definition. And then I had to justify it to my committee. So psychosocial impacts, I can still do it by memory, are defined as the complex of distress, dysfunction, and disability manifested in a wide range of outcomes in individuals, groups, or communities as a consequence of actual or perceived environmental contamination. See, can still do it without looking 35 years later. That's how invested I was in my PhD. But what does all that mean, and how will I know it when I see it? So I now have to operationally define these things. How am I going to know it when I see it? Environmental, interaction of a foreign substance with the environment. So an environmental exposure, something bad is going in the environment and people are exposed to it. Exposure, my operational definition of exposed communities was anyone living within 2.5 kilometers of a non-hazardous waste disposal site. To me, that meant they were exposed 2.5 kilometers. That was, and it was non-hazardous waste. Non-hazardous waste, so I'd be very specific. A landfill, which is where, big hole in the ground and you dump the garbage in, or an incinerator, because during that time, that was allowed in my province. You could incinerate the garbage. Psychosocial impacts. I designed a huge survey, which still exists, and it had a whole bunch of sections in it, and it measured emotional distress, somatic manifestations of emotional distress, which means, when you're really stressed and you're worried, what happens inside your body? You get headaches, you get a stomach ache, maybe you don't sleep at night. Social determinants, because I know these things vary by income, by education, by gender, by age, by experiences with environmental exposures. Familiarity with risk reduces one's perception of that risk. We were chatting over coffee earlier, Tara and I, about a trip that she took related to her education to a particularly unsafe part of the world. Her parents were, of course, very worried about her. They were not worried, however, about the potential for typhoons. They were more worried about the violent crime that happened in that place. But they weren't worried about typhoons. Why not? Tara's parents are from Taiwan. It's not unusual to have that kind of weather pattern. They're familiar with it. They understand it. So they don't worry about it. So that's my PhD dissertation. This was the example that Tara used in her lit review. How can mangrove protected area managers create better opportunities for local livelihoods? That was the question Tara used in her lit review example. It came from Brent Doberstein, who was here yesterday. I can't believe it was only yesterday. And he's one of the guys who's writing the proposal terms of reference, and will probably review your proposals. And I think, what I want to do is, let's do this. Take 10 minutes to chat with the folks at your table, and the Zoom folks chat online. What are the concepts here? What do they mean? And how would we operationally define them? Just in 10 minutes. Then we'll have a break. Then we'll come back and conclude.
Our group find it's several concepts. First, mangrove. Okay, mangrove. First, mangrove coastal vegetation is the area with the coastal vegetation.
Sorry. What's your concept from that question?
Mangrove.
Mangrove is a concept?
Yeah.
Isn't mangrove a tree?
Yeah, mangrove definition, mangrove definition.
Okay.
What is mangrove definition?
Okay.
And protected area. Also, the definition of the protected area. and pentahelix concept. Pentahelix for the for the manager due to the pentahelix concept.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding what you're saying.
Actor managers concept. No, managers.
No, we're only drawing on
artist
the
who manage-
actual words that are on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
screen, right?
Actor who manage the area. Okay, managers. The actor who manage the area.
Managers.
We conduct we relate with the pentahelix concept. There are 5 actors.
Okay, but
we
we're
related.
only using words that are in the
Okay.
question.
Okay, and the
right?
others is local livelihood. Local livelihood.
Local livelihood.
Livelihood, yeah.
So I'm going to separate that.
And better opportunities.
Any other concepts that are in that question? Yes.
Other terms that we make the concepts. So we divide between protected area and mangrove protected area.
Okay.
Yeah. And we also would like to add that we make better opportunities into one term, so better opportunities into one concept. That's it.
Anybody else? Yeah. That word is not on the screen.
Oh, okay. Okay. Saya memiliki beberapa keyword dalam pengerjaan untuk manajemen peluang untuk local livelihood untuk permasalahan mangrove. Jadi yang saya tuliskan adalah mangrove, protected location, kemudian forest, local livelihood, kemudian management, restoration, blue economy, dan stakeholder. Karena saya bermaksud untuk masyarakat sekitar di daerah mangrove itu bisa diberdayakan untuk security di daerah protected location untuk mangrove-nya, ataupun bisa dijadikan sebagai partner riset untuk masalah data karbonnya begitu.
So everything that you have said is very important, but they're not in that research question. So when you are identifying the concepts that you have to define, they come directly from your research questions. If you have words on your concept list that are not in your research question, you need to reword your research question. They really need to match 100%. So if you think restoration is the word that should be used, that should be the word used in the research question. Okay, so Tara, can I just ask you to tear this off and stick it on the wall over there, and we'll start defining them one by one. Or not. There we go. Okay. So our first concept is mangrove. How do we define mangrove? Somebody needs to put a hand up and get a microphone.
So our group has found that mangrove is a coastal vegetation characterized by a unique morphology with a root system capable of adapting to tidal areas with mud or sandy mud substrates. It is according to the government law.
I just wrote what she said. Yeah, that's exactly right. Well done. What she said. How will we know one when we see one? I think it's kind of a trick question because I'm not sure I would identify mangrove as a concept.
Yeah, actually, perhaps we have to put mangrove area. Yeah.
Yeah.
So because in operational, we mean the mangrove area is the area seaside the sea with the mangrove vegetation or coastal vegetation.
But if we talk
Yeah.
about mangrove protected
Protected
area
area.
as a concept,
So in
what does
our-
that mean?
Yeah, in our group, we decided that mangrove protected area is the area with the typology as a mangrove, and decided by the government as a protected area. Due to
So this is a government designation?
government law. Yeah, Indonesian government law number 5 1999.
Is that the only kind of mangrove protected area? It must have a government designation? Yes? No?
No. We have the regulation in Indonesia.
Are there any other kinds of mangrove protected areas other than ones designated by government? Okay, so we have some disagreement on this. So, it could be a government designated site. A community protected site. Do you agree at this table over here? Do you agree that there could
No.
be you don't
Yeah,
agree?
no agree. Because in Indonesia, if we want to ask this area as a protected function, it have to decided by government.
Okay.
Yeah, in our law, something like that. So the government also decided by the function of the criteria of the area. If this criteria fulfill the what is fulfill the needs of the function. There are two functions, conservation and also the protected function. It's mean have the life perlindungan hidup, livelihood, life protection, something when it is 45 degrees landfill, it is have to as a protected area. If there are some species or some creature have to conserve, it's have to become a conservation area. This
Okay.
is our law in Indonesia. So,
Okay. Do you agree with that it has to be government designated?
Not really, because in the my experience in the northern coast of Java, no, there's a lot of villages have their own mangrove protected area, small mangrove protector. It's developed by the growing land, no. There's a lot of sedimentation, then the growing become the land, delta, something like that. And it's belong to the village, not from to the government. So we basically have three levels, yeah. From the center government, we call it the mangrove conservation area. But for the local government, we have marine mangrove protected area, hutan lindung. And for the village level, we have the mangrove community protected area.
Perfect. So to me, it doesn't matter if you agree or disagree. The most important thing is when you're putting this in your proposal, you say, and this is what I mean when I say this. Brilliant. So we see that even something as, even something as, it seems very straightforward, we have disagreement on what it means and how we'll know it when we see it, right? So that's really important. Managers. What's a manager? Oh, you can't do 12 things at once. Just rip it.
Manager in our group is the stakeholder who will involve in mangrove protected area management.
Okay, but what does that mean? Do they get
Yes.
paid?
Yeah, so there are five stakeholder who manage mangrove areas according to the pentahelic model due to Jan Jidajat Cakramaja 2012. Five actor pentahelic who involved in mangrove protected area management.
So you've got some reference that says there
Yeah.
are 5 actors involved in the management.
Yeah, this is from siapa nih? Aku baca. Jan Jidajat Cakra Atmaja 12 and many reference.
Okay.
Other reference.
So there's 5 different types of people who manage this
5
site.
actors.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you can name them.
From government, community, industry, academia, and for special agent who will evaluation and monitoring. Yeah, multi stakeholders.
Okay. So this is the concept. How do we operationally define that? So when you say government, what do you mean?
Yeah, the government it could be local to central government.
Okay, but now you have to be really, really specific. Who do you
Okay.
mean? What government office?
Yeah,
What government
from
ministry?
the forestry ministry and also for the fishery ministry.
Okay, so are there specific people like the minister of forests, the minister of fisheries?
Okay, BPDS itu apa? Watershed agency apa? Watershed agency.
And what about community? Who is that?
For the community, the local community, people around the mangrove.
Everybody?
No, perhaps fishermen.
The fishermen?
Fishermen. Huh? Yeah, farmers group.
So the fishermen are individuals, but the farmers are in an
Yeah, farmers group.
association. Anyone else? Anybody can contribute
Yeah.
to this conversation, by the way.
Women group,
Women's groups?
yeah.
Academia, who is that?
Academia is the academia researchers. Mangrove researcher. Researcher.
I'm not hearing. All the researchers in the whole entire world?
Mangrove researcher.
Mangrove researchers
Yeah.
from where?
From the local university.
What local university?
In province levels.
Sorry, from where?
Province level.
Sorry, I'm not understanding.
Province. Yeah.
From the area.
Yeah.
Is there a university in every area where there's a mangrove protected area?
Usually.
Yeah. Okay. All right, we've got lots of detail. Let's take this one away. And let's do local. What does local mean? Yes. Sorry, here, take mine. Oh, you got one? Okay.
Local means being associated with a locality in concern, something.
So there's a very fancy word called tautology, which means you just use the word you're defining to define the word. So let's think about what we mean when we say local. Yeah.
So our team defined locals as community surrounding the mangrove protected areas.
Community what?
Surrounding.
Communities surrounding.
The mangrove protected areas.
Okay.
Living communities.
Living. Living in. So it could be people. People living in communities surrounding the mangrove protective areas. Great. Let's have an operational definition. Because using that language, we could say every community in the world lives around a mangrove protected area. Remember back to my operational definition of exposure for my PhD, I said to be exposed, you have to live within 2.5 kilometers of a site. So how close do I have to live to be considered part of the local community? Yeah.
Bahasa Indonesia ya, Bu. Kalau mengacu ke peraturan yang namanya lokal di sini adalah masyarakat yang arealnya itu secara administrasi beririsan, berdekatan, kemudian juga secara administratif ya, itu memang berada di sekitar kawasan mangrove yang dilindungi itu gitu. Jadi ada batas administrasi yang ditetapkan secara legal. Masyarakat yang beririsan, berdekatan, dan masuk secara administrasi di sekitar areal mangrove yang dimaksud.
Good. And now we have actually a rationale, a justification. That's very good. I'm going to get to one or two more before I put you to work to define your own concepts. and I want to do a more difficult one, which is that was me. That was me. What do we mean when we say better opportunities? What does better mean? I can't go home for another 45 minutes, so. Go for it. Yeah.
So our group define better opportunities, since we make both into one term, as a positive impact in social adaptability and to gain better access in a lot of various ways. For example, like policy.
Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. Positive impact in
Social adaptability
adaptability
and better access.
and better
Access in information, whether it's information or policy, and a lot of any other things.
information or policy or any other things. So I'm just gonna, it's a good start. It's a very good start. But one of the things that has happened is we've created new concepts, right? So now we have to say, what is impact? What is adaptability? What is social? So it starts to get complicated. And one question I would ask is better for whom? Better for whom? We've talked a lot about, oh, go. Yeah. We've got a mic there. Yeah.
Better local livelihood opportunities. I would understand it as that the local community has a greater probability of getting additional or main income to make a living.
I like that because it's very specific. So what I put is greater probability of increased income. That's one definition of better. Another definition of better might be reduced inequalities in income so that everyone in the community is better off. I'm not suggesting one is better than the other, it's just different. So when we think about better, better for whom? I have seen so many research questions focused on women and women's groups and gender. And yet, in the definition of all these constructs, no one has mentioned women.
We have one more person in the back with a microphone.
Okay. Actually, our team would like to add one concept. Is
Yeah.
it? Yeah. There is no. Yeah. The concept is managers.
Yep, we did managers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
managers. And then we separate the better and the opportunities into two concepts.
Yep.
So we actually put the opportunities only, and the concept is like a favorable of the condition and timing that allows to do or gain something, of course, from the mangrove protected area.
That's great. So the take home messages, the things that you need to remember when you're doing this are it's up to you what you mean when you say these words and how you're going to know them when you see them. But you can't just make stuff up. You want to be able to refer to the literature. So there is lots of literature on addressing livelihood opportunities in these sorts of contexts. Might not be mangrove, might not be Indonesia. We call that arguing by analogy. So in a situation like I talked about in the US, for example, not that I'm American, where we had to take farmers who were growing tobacco and say, we're telling everybody to stop smoking cigarettes. You got to grow something else. How did they change their minds? How did they provide them with different and better opportunities? Just a quick aside. This is happening everywhere in the world. So we are also making environmental decisions globally to stop using coal, right, as a source of fuel. There's a big part of England, big part of the US, where people make their living digging coal out of the ground. And those mines are shutting down. And no one is thinking about that human being that just lost their livelihood, that still has a family to look after and children to feed and a house to pay for. And those people are really struggling. And one of the implications has been in that part of the United States, which is called the Appalachians, incredibly high deaths from drug overdoses. Because those primarily men are losing not just their job, but you lose your dignity. You're no longer a provider for your family. And they're turning to addictive behaviors like these very strong opioid drugs. And the death rate is astounding. So they're leaving their families behind. So you can look at that literature from other parts of the world and see how you can apply it to your situation. That's innovative. That makes an innovative proposal. So we're going to take maybe 25 minutes for you to start thinking about the concepts in your research questions and how you're going to define them and how you're going to know them when you see them. All of these concepts came from your research questions, whether you're on the Zoom call or in the room. Sustainability, where did sustainability came up over and over again. And we talked about that on day one yesterday. Oh my gosh, it was only yesterday. What does that mean? What does that mean to you in your research? Benefits. What's a benefit? Benefit to whom? Participation. What does that look like? We have lots of words related to equity, equality, unfair. Where did it go? Inequity, injustice, unfair, empowerment, viable, attitudes, knowledge, women, gender, impact, ecosystem, appropriate, effectiveness. How do we know if something's effective or not? These are all your words, right? So take just until 1:45. Tara and I will go around the tables. If someone's on Zoom and wants to chat to us, just let one of the ladies know and we'll follow up. And then at 1:45, we're going to come back, wrap up, do our survey for the day, and we have one more Slido to do. Great job, everybody. Okay, I'm going to draw everyone back together. I cannot tell you how much fun I have had today. This has been an amazing experience, and I hope if the people on Zoom are hearing, the people on Zoom have been very active behind the scenes, and they have actually gone through this wonderful example too, and they want to make a presentation. So we're going to put them on the agenda very first thing tomorrow morning. We'll start with them. And that will get our heads into conceptualization and operationalization. We will have a lot of time tomorrow to continue to talk and help you through this process, because I know it's a bit of a challenge. It's not easy. None of this is easy. So we're going to do that. And one of the things that we're also going to talk about tomorrow is research methods. So how are you going to get the data that you need to answer your question? So there are a lot of different methods, and I'm going to just kind of give you an overview in the morning. But it would be really useful just for me to have a sense of the kinds of methods that people are thinking about in order to do what we would say is a deep dive on those later in the day. So thanks to Tara, she put together a little Slido thing. Slido. Oh, I can see.
So we're
Tara's
still using the
comprehensive
same
example.
Slido that we use for the literature review. We're just getting that set up now. So if you log in, if you still have it open, just put in hashtag NbS. And there's a question there where we want to know what are the data collection methods that you might be thinking about using. And this will help us prepare for tomorrow, as Susan mentioned.
Yeah. And nobody's going to hold you to this at all. It's just to give us a sense of where we need to focus down on, do a deeper dive on.
Sambil bisa minta ini nggak kita tanggal yang tahun berapa? Nggak, kalau sana nggak ikut yang pertama. Ujiannya. Oh, apa? Cewek aja.